and then the board members will have the opportunity to ask their questions. I'll come back to you if there's anything else you want to say. You'll have the opportunity, and Ms. Harrell will have the opportunity to ask further questions. And at some point, when all the questions have been completed, the evidence is submitted, then we will close the record in your case. And we have 5 matters today, so after all of the 5 matters have been completed, the board will meet in what we call executive session, so essentially in private. And they will decide each of the matters, and they will communicate their decision to you in writing by mail, I assume. Okay, any questions about the way in which we're going to proceed this morning?
No, sir.
Okay, and if you're confused about what's going on at any point in the proceedings, just get my attention. I'll do my best to answer your question. Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Ms. Harrell, proceed.
Thank you. Again, Deputy Attorney General Summer Harrow. I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I'm here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I'm here to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. I'd like to first mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 1, the original petition packet with accompanying documents. The board members and petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same set of exhibits. Excuse me, of this exhibit. Exhibit 1 generally consists of the petition for early termination, a letter from probation analyst to the petitioner regarding the results of a psychological evaluation, a receipt for compliance payment to the board, the examination result for LCSW Law and Ethics exam, petitioner's application for licensure and examination, a certificate of rehabilitation, the petition and order for dismissal of San Diego County Superior Court case number C150140, and approximately 35 letters of support or recommendation, which are by the director and associate pastor of Capital Counseling Center, the director, coaches, and group leaders at Christ Community Church Celebrate Recovery, letters from fellow AA members, petitioner's AA sponsor, the chief of the hepatology division at the Veteran Affairs of Northern California Healthcare System, the supervisor, the director, doctors, nurse practitioners, and physician's assistants at Health and Life Organization, doctors, nurse practitioners, and physician assistants at Sacramento Community Clinics, directors of Pacific Educational Services, Inc., the former office manager at Sierra Council, professors at Sacramento State University, petitioner's physician, and petitioner's family members. The packet also contains certificates of completion from Bridges Professional Treatment Services, from Celebrate Recovery, Mindset Continuing Education, Cross Country Education, Addiction Technology Transfer Center Network, California Association of Addiction Recovery Resources, On Track, which is all one word, program resources, and the California Hispanic Commission on Alcohol and Drug Abuse. The petition packet also contains a Sutter County performance appraisal dated April 17th, 2017 to July 17th, 2017, a staff performance appraisal covering May 27th, 2014 to August 27th, 2014, a diploma for Master of Social Work from Sacramento State University, a diploma for a Bachelor of Arts in Liberal Studies from Sacramento State University, the certification of Certified Addiction Treatment Counselor from Addiction Counselor Certification Board, a credential as Registered Addiction Specialist from the Brining Institute, and Brining is spelled Brining, a certificate for scholarship recipient from Sutter Healthcare Scholars Program, The Gatekeeper Certificate for QPR Suicide Prevention Gatekeeper Program. A Certificate of Attendance from My Sister's House Human Trafficking Conference. The Board's June 23, 2015 decision adopting the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order regarding petitioner. The Board's October 5, 2016 decision on petitioner's petition for modification of probation. Petitioner's psychotherapy quarterly reports. The notice of this February 21, 2018 hearing. And the registration history certification for a petitioner. At this time, I offer this packet into evidence as Exhibit 1.
Okay, Mr. Barella, I assume you have no objection to my receiving your petition and supporting documents and evidence?
Correct.
Right, one in evidence.
All right. Additionally, petitioner recently provided the following documents, which have been provided to the board today. There's a cover letter, an unofficial score report for Association of Social Work Boards, dated February 9th, 2018. Certificates of completion from Relias Learning, and Relias is spelled R-E-L-I-A-S, as well as a transcript from Relias Learning. At this time, I offer these additional documents into evidence as Exhibit 2.
Okay, any objection to my receiving the additional documents and evidence, Mr. Barella?
No objection.
Okay, 2 is received.
Thank you. I'll now provide the board with a brief summary of petitioner's license history with the board. On May 29th, 2014, the board received petitioner's application for registration as an associate clinical social worker. On September 5th, 2014, the board denied petitioner's application. Petitioner requested a hearing and the board filed Statement of Issues number 200-2015-000084. The Statement of Issues alleged that petitioner's application was subject to denial because petitioner had been convicted of crimes substantially related to qualifications, functions, or duties of an associate clinical social worker. Those convictions were the following. On February 15th, 1994, petitioner was convicted in San Diego Superior Court, case number C150140, of violating Penal Code Section 12025, subsection A, for carrying a concealed weapon in a vehicle, a misdemeanor. On May 21st, 1996, petitioner was convicted in Solano County Superior Court, case number C41627, of violating Health and Safety Code Section 11379, subdivision A, for transporting a controlled substance for purposes of sale, with the enhancement of Penal Code Section 12022, subdivision C, for possessing a firearm during the commission of a felony. On May 21st, 1996, petitioner was convicted in Solano County Superior Court, case number C41628, of violating Health and Safety Code Section 1137, subdivision A, for transporting a controlled substance for purposes of sale, a felony, with the enhancement of Penal Code Section 12022.1, that at the time of the commission of the offense, respondent was released from custody on bail from case number C41627. Finally, on July 14th, 2008, petitioner was convicted in Solano County Superior Court, case number FCR 247011, of violating Health and Safety Code Section 11377, subdivision A, possession of a controlled substance, to wit, methamphetamine, a felony. In June 2015, petitioner entered into a stipulated settlement. In doing so, he admitted the truth of each and every allegation of the Statement of Issues, number 200-2015-000084. The stipulation provided for the revocation of petitioner's license, stayed on 3 years probation pursuant to the following terms. that petitioner receive a psychological and psychiatric evaluation, psychotherapy, clinical diagnostic evaluation, that he participate in a relapse prevention program, that he abstain from controlled substances and submit biological fluid testing and samples, that he abstain from alcohol and submit to biological fluid testing and samples, that petitioner attend a dependency support program, obey all laws, file quarterly reports, comply with the probation program, comply with interviews with the board, and that if he failed to practice, changed his place of employment or place of residence, that he notify the board, that he had no supervision of unlicensed persons, that he provide notification to clients, notification to employers, that if he violated the probation, his license would be revoked, his registration would be revoked, that he maintain a valid registration or license, that he could surrender the registration or license. He was instructed instructed to participate in coursework qualifying for continuing education, that he provide notification to referral services, and that he provide reimbursement of the probation program. On June 23, 2015, the board adopted the stipulation as its order. The decision became effective on July 23, 2015. On April 9, 2016, petitioner signed a petition for modification of probation, which the board granted in part and denied in part on October 5, 2016. Petitioner is now petitioning for early termination of his probation. Because the burden is on the petitioner, I have no further statements, but reserve the right to question the petitioner.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Haro, are you going to provide the documents which you described as Exhibit 1 so I can make them part of the record?
I can provide those to you. I had been told that they had been, but I have a copy.
I don't have them, but if one of the board staff has the petition-related documents, I can make them part of the record.
But I'm happy to provide.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, with that, Mr. Burrell, as I mentioned earlier, you would have the opportunity to make a statement in support of your petition to the board. I'm going to presume, because I know this from past experience, that the board has reviewed your petition and the supporting documents. So you don't need to spend time going through the documents that you've submitted to board members, all right? So, but the board would like to hear from you in any way in which you want to augment that which you submitted to the board, and essentially try to communicate to the board why you think your probation should be terminated early, all right? Okay, so would you stand, please, and raise your right hand to be sworn? You solemnly swear or affirm any testimony you shall give in this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. Just for the record, you are Alejandro Barella. You're the petitioner for early termination and probation, correct?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Barella.
Basically, the documents pretty much show the process of rehabilitation that I've been through, even before I applied for the registration. So, I've been complying with my own recovery therapy, 12-step groups, and then, doing my career, going through the process of finishing my master's and in employment, complying with everything, and then doing a good job, just continuing to do better every day. So basically the documents, a lot of letters of recommendation and certificates, I think they speak for themselves. So I'll be more than happy to answer any questions.
The Deputy AG recited the history, so you were placed on probation for how many years initially?
3.
For 3. And so how much longer do you have on probation?
For July of this year, sir.
Till July of this year. Okay, thank you. Ms. Howard, do you have questions?
I do have a few. Mr. Barella, can you tell us why you would like your probation terminated early, since it's set to terminate in July?
Yeah, it's a good question. Basically, it's redeeming myself. Everything I do, it's actually for my own benefit. Sure. Yeah, it is to work on my own recovery. Everything I'm doing, I try to do it for my own self, to heal, to recover my own self. And whenever I have an opportunity to do something better, like showing that I've been doing better, like doing this, I take it, even if it doesn't work. That's the way I've been doing things for almost 20 years now.
Brilla, do you feel that you have a problem with alcohol?
No, I don't. Well, if I touch it again, I probably will, but I'm not going to touch it again.
Do you have a support system in place to help with that?
I do.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I have a sponsor. I sponsor people. I have groups that I go to. I have my faith group. I have my therapist that I've been having for a long time. My family support, friends, and I fellowship with people at work and different places. But mainly, my support group is people who don't drink, and they support me in that process.
What about methamphetamine? Do you consider yourself to have a problem with that?
No, methamphetamine, cocaine, and all that stuff that I dealt with on the side was basically stimulated by the alcohol, by my impairments. But it's never been a problem, and I don't consider it a problem. I never crave any of that.
Ms. Brilla, do you have any criminal convictions that the board is not aware of?
No, I don't.
Are there any current criminal or civil charges pending against you?
No.
Right, those are all the questions I have.
Okay, we'll start down to my right. Do board members have questions for Mr. Barella?
Judges, first of all, congratulations on passing your exam. I just wondered what, certainly if your probation is terminated early, you don't report for any testing, etc. But what will change with the rest of your recovery or support program if the early termination request is granted?
Nothing. I've been doing this since 2008. Exactly the same thing, actually more intensive and off and on. So it's my own recovery, So I appreciate the support, the pressure, but it's definitely not what stimulates me. Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time before I even applied.
Thank you.
No question. Thank you.
I have no questions.
No questions. First, I also wanted to congratulate you on passing the exam. That's very exciting. I just noticed your letters of recommendation were over a year old. I just found that interesting. You didn't have any newer ones.
Yeah, I figured it wouldn't be necessary since it's been so close, and I've been doing so well. I don't like to go out there and ask for so much if I don't really need it. So I felt I didn't need it. So.
All right. And I noticed you'd been doing therapy. Are you also going to continue therapy, or?
Yes, I have been getting therapy before, and I continue to get therapy for my own benefit. It helps me a lot.
Thank you.
Congratulations for passing the test.
Thank
That's
you.
a huge step. Yes. And so last year, not actually 2 years ago, you came up here to the board, and so the board sent you back a recommendation for you to get the insight-oriented therapy. So can you tell us a little bit more about what you learned from, the therapy sessions and what, the new insight that you found?
Okay, thank you. Yes, I've been getting, when I first started therapy, it was insight-oriented. It was psychotherapy at first to process all my trauma. And then it got into CBT to learn coping skills and healthier ways to live. So that's what I was doing last year and the year before. So going back to psychotherapy, to insight-oriented, it was almost twice a month psychotherapy. I didn't find it as necessary, but I comply with everything I'm asked to do. As a therapist, I thought it was kind of a refreshment, a review of some of the issues, the initial issues that I had. So going back to them, it helps. I mean, I'm definitely grateful to the therapist who's supporting me. But I think I'm at the point where I need to develop more coping skills and continue to integrate and internalize those things so that I could continue dealing with life in life terms rather than going back to the abuses and all that stuff that I had to survive because now I could talk about them all day long. I just think it's not the appropriate time. And my therapists have supported me in that view. And doing it twice a month, like I said, was not as effective as it could have been once a week. Once a week. But we did the best of it, and that's what I do. I do the best of it. Thank you.
So I also noticed that you have a new job. Now you're working for behavioral health. So what type of population that primarily you work with?
The Latino population, parents and kids, and people affected by poverty, substance abuse, violence, general underrepresented population issues, which I'm very grateful to be doing, and especially coming from the background, it makes it particularly interesting to be able to provide back support in the areas that I suffer with back in my childhood and adolescence.
So do you find yourself challenged, by their experience, and in the process of helping them, do you find, yourself, affected by?
Always, and all my colleagues and my recovery people, support people, we always talk about that the challenges are where I least expect them, because I expect someone with substance, recovery or someone with violence past But usually, some of the surprises, the nice surprises I get from people I don't expect it. So I do have a lot of support at work and my personal. We use a lot of the therapy time to process some of the countertransference and transference issues that go on, and not necessarily with substance abuse. It could be anything. What I'm finding out that the movement of recovering from sexual abuse, I'm connecting to it a lot. It's not because of the sexual abuse, but because of the strength and the hope that these young people present, and it's been some of the main issues that I deal with, and it's not necessarily substance abuse. But it's always challenging, and depends how I'm doing. If I'm sick or whatever's going on in my life affects that too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning and congratulations. I just have a few simple questions. You changed your therapist to Laurie Fitzgerald. Is because some of the things you talk about, you want to try different type of therapy?
No, because the psychologist that I was seeing moved back to the Bay Area, and it was she requested that we do therapy, and that wasn't accepted by the board.
Thank you. Does your current therapist recommend early termination, probation?
I'm sure she does. We kind of talk about some of the issues that I've been dealing with, especially because of the inside-oriented therapy, because it's kind of going back to initial issues. She didn't write me a letter per se. It's been so close that I didn't go back and try to ask a lot of people. I reserved my asking for when I really need it, and I felt like this time I didn't ask her for a letter, but I'm sure she supports that.
One last question. Do you have a sobriety date?
Yes, I do. It's August 1st of it's 10 years, so it's 2007.
Thank you.
Did you say August 1st? I'm sorry.
August, September. No, it's August 1st. Yeah, August 1st.
August 1st. Okay.
I get confused with September, but.
Good morning. I want to say congratulations again.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Passing your test. That is no easy feat, so applaud you for that. I do have a question. I am wondering, the record states that you began your recovery treatment in 1996 after your initial conviction, and then it appears as though you were sober for 11 years, and then you had a relapse in 2007. Could you speak a little bit about what were the circumstances surrounding the relapse? And the reason why I'm asking is it's been 9 years since, or going on 10 years, and so you're moving back in that same sort of time frame. So
My mother, I reconciled with my family back in those days, and my mother was living with me, and she passed away of a sudden medical issue, and I processed everything to the best of my ability, but I isolated, and I ended up with a depression, and then eventually a relapse, and then eventually doing all kinds of math and everything, but the initial trigger was not being ready for a serious loss, which I am now. I had to learn that no matter what, I need to be sober, and I wasn't ready then.
I'm very sorry for the loss of your mother. That would have been
Thank you.
very
Appreciate
difficult for anyone. But what sort of supports do you have in place now where if you were to experience a similar type of loss, whether it's loss of employment, loss of a family member, or something like that, how would you manage that differently now to maintain your sobriety?
First of all, I think that therapy has prepared me to process pain in a different way. Now it's more success. My life is more filled with success and achievements than it is with just surviving and just making it. And even coming here, I don't feel like I have to come. I feel like I get to do things. So being in the mindset and internalizing, and not just saying it, internalizing it and actually believing in myself and believing in everything that I'm doing and my calling, my mission in life has made things differently. So automatically I'm better prepared. But then I have a support system. I have my sponsor, my support people. Every group that I go to, I have at least 2 males that I contact with, and I always call them, and I fellowship with them at least in the holidays or time that I have off. I go and visit them like brothers because they're family to me. And that support system has been going on for a long time. So I have real good friends now who love me and support me, and I love and support too because it's mutual.
Thank you, and congratulations again.
Thank you. It's been great.
Okay. Any further questions by board members? Oh, Ms. Haro, do you have any more questions? Anything else you want to say, Mr. Borrello, before we close the record?
I want to thank you for the opportunity. It's been good. It's been a process. It's been part of my journey, and I appreciate all your support, everybody.
Okay, thank you for appearing. Before you leave, would you obtain from the court reporter sitting over there a document by which, if you wish, you can order a transcript of today's proceedings? Okay, and just to remind you, the board at the conclusion of all 5 hearings will meet privately in executive session, decide your petition and the others, and then they will send you their decision. All right?
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, the matter is submitted. The record is closed. The next matter is Ontiveros. So, Mr. Ontiveros, would you come forward? Sent by documents, and they said, oh, no. Yeah, so yes. Okay, let me open the record then in the second matter today. Eric Ontiveros. This is a petition for early termination of probation, correct, Mr. Ontiveros? Okay. And for the record, this matter bears Office of Administrative Hearings case number 2018-010687. And again, agency number, also a long number, 2002-014-000-257. My name is Carl Engelman, Administrative Law Judge, assigned to hear this matter. We were convened on February 21, 2018. I'm not going to ask the board members to identify themselves again for the record, as they did in the previous matter involving Mr. Barella, but for the record, a quorum of the board is present. Ms. Harrell, would you identify yourself for the record again, please?
Yes, Deputy Attorney General Summer Haro. I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I'm here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I'm here to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. I would like to first mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 1.
Before you do that, just on a couple of things, I just want to make sure, Mr. Ontiveros, you were here during the Barella matter, the previous matter, is that correct? Okay, so you heard me ask Mr. Barella if he was going to represent himself, and he said yes. And do you intend to represent yourself? Okay, and I think you heard me ask him if he understood that he could have been represented at his own expense by a lawyer. Did you understand that as well? Okay, all right, then I'm sorry, Ms. Harrell, for the interruption. Please continue.
Not a problem. Excuse me. So I'd like to first mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 1, the petition packet with accompanying documents. The board members and petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same set of this exhibit, and I believe there was an additional page that was just provided to the board that had inadvertently been omitted because of copier errors. So Exhibit 1 generally consists of petition for modification with attachments, a certificate for employee of the quarter, an employee evaluation for the County of Riverside, certificates of attendance for continuing education activities, 5 letters of support or recommendation, which are by petitioner's clinical supervisor at Riverside University Health System, colleagues at the County of Riverside Department of Mental Health, petitioner's therapist, and petitioner's supervisor at Riverside University Health System. The packet also contains the board's August 5th, 2015 decision adopting the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, petitioner's psychotherapy quarterly reports, the notice of today's hearing, petitioner's registration history certification. At this time, I offer this packet into evidence as Exhibit 1.
Okay, Mr. Ontiveros, any objection to my receiving your petition and supporting documents and evidence?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, one in evidence. Please continue.
Thank you. I'll now provide a brief summary of petitioner's license history with the board. On October 20th, 2012, the board issued Associate Clinical Social Worker Registration Number ASW 34342 to petitioner. On March 27th, 2015, the board filed accusation number 200-2014-000257 against petitioner. The accusation alleged 3 causes of disciplinary action for 2 convictions of substantially related crimes and for dangerous use of alcohol. The accusation arose from petitioner's August 27, 2014 conviction for violation of Vehicle Code Section 23152, subsection B, which is driving while having 0.08% or more by weight of alcohol in his blood, and for his June 20th, 2014 conviction for violation of Penal Code Section 647, subdivision F, public intoxication, which was a misdemeanor. In June 2016, petitioner entered into a stipulated settlement. In doing so, he admitted the truth of each and every charge of accusation number 200-2014-000257. The stipulation provided for the revocation of license stayed on 5 years probation pursuant to the following terms. That petitioner participate in psychotherapy, a relapse prevention program, attend dependency support program, abstain from controlled substances and submit to biological fluid testing and samples, abstain from alcohol and submit to biological fluid testing and samples, obey all laws, file quarterly reports, comply with the probation program, participate in interviews with the board, provide notification to the board of a failure to practice, provide notification to the board of change of place of employment or place of residence, that he not supervise unlicensed persons, that he provide notification to clients, notification to his employer, terms regarding the violation of probation, a requirement that he maintain a valid registration or license, a provision for the surrender of his registration or license, instruction of coursework qualifying for continuing education, notification to referral services, and reimbursement of probation program. On August 5th, 2015, the board adopted the stipulation as its order. The decision became effective September 4th, 2015. Petitioner is now petitioning to have his probation terminated. Because the burden is on the petitioner, I have no further statements, but reserve the right to question the petitioner.
Okay, Mr. Ontiveros, as you heard me tell Mr. Barella, he and you now will have the opportunity to address the board in support of your petition and explain to the board any reasons that you think beyond which is contained in your petition why you ought to be granted early termination of probation. All right, would you stand and raise your right hand to be sworn, please? You solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony you should give in this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Record, you are Eric Ontiveros. You are the petitioner for early termination of probation, correct?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
I also wanted to provide updated information in regards to attendance of a support group. I brought, thankfully, Ms. Madsen.
Could you please get closer to the mics? I don't believe the court reporter can hear you, and I don't know that everyone here can hear you.
Sorry about that. I wanted to provide additional copies of my recent attendance for self-help groups from January.
There we go.
January until this past week.
Gonna have to get closer.
Okay. But Ms. Madsen is passing out our additional copies of attendance for self-help groups from January of this year up until this past week, just to show my continued attendance. I also have provided an updated letter of recommendation from my supervisor, just due to the date. The content is the same, but he left it sealed, so I didn't provide any additional copies for that. So, how would I provide this? Just
How would you like him to provide?
Well, are those anything else beyond that which you just described, Mr. Ontiveros, that you wish to augment the record with?
not at this time.
Okay.
Updated date. The content is still the same as what was originally
Okay.
submitted.
Any, Ms. Harrow, any objection to my receiving these as Exhibit 2 to augment the petition?
No objection.
All right.
I'm not. I know it's stamped confidential. My concern. Can I talk to the petitioner for just a moment?
Yes, off the record.
Yes.
We're still off the record. You want to go back on the record?
We can stay off just for clarification.
Okay.
So this isn't a private, we don't have a privacy concern. It's just, as he said, an updated version of a letter that's already part of the packet. If you would like copies of it, Ms. Madsen, could I think that would probably be the best way if we could run copies and
Okay.
then.
Why don't you, before copies are made, why don't you review it? Okay.
Yeah, this is the same information that was
Okay. And you're
previously there.
not going to have any objections.
I'm not going to have
Okay.
any objections to it.
You want to continue while copies are made, or does the board want to wait? Sure. Good time for a 5-minute. How about 10 minutes, just so you have.
So the board is going to recess for 10 minutes, and then we will reconvene. It is 9:23.
So, have copies been made of the letter that Mr. Ontiveros wants to add to his petition?
Yes, I believe copies have been made. It's a January 29th, 2018 letter.
Okay, I'm gonna then identify the letter along with the self-help meetings proof of attendance sheet as Exhibit 2. If I didn't mention this earlier, or if it was off the record, and if I didn't ask you earlier, Ms. Haro, any objection to adding these two documents as Exhibit 2?
No objection.
Okay. Two's received. Okay, please continue, Mr. Ontiveros.
Thank you for the opportunity to present my request for early termination of my probation. I am grateful to be here. As you heard in my description of my offenses, I am very lucky to not have hurt others.
Mr. Ontiveros, let me stop you right there. I don't know why, but it's been my experience that every human being, when they read a document, speeds up. I'm not sure why. So if you're going to read from a prepared statement, that's all right, but I want you to do it in such a way that it almost seems like you're in slow motion. You'll be reading at a normal pace. That's been my experience, but slow down, all right? The court reporter has to keep up with you. So start again.
I am nervous, so I apologize. But
Well, again, that doesn't have anything to do with it as far as I'm concerned. It's just for whatever reason, people speed up when they read. So slowly, please.
Your Honor. Thank you for the opportunity to present my request for early termination of my probation. I am grateful to be here. As you heard in the description of my offenses, I am very lucky to not have hurt others or myself while in the grips of my alcoholism. I take responsibility for the reckless. Is that better?
Sorry about it.
Shall I start over?
You're up. You've got it so far? All right, just continue.
Yeah.
Better? Okay. As you heard in the description of my offenses, I am very lucky to have not hurt others or myself while in the grips of my alcoholism. I take responsibility for the reckless and irresponsible way in which I was conducting my life at that time. I often think about my DUI and public intoxication charges. The feeling of coming to in jail, surrounded by strangers.
Okay, you want to take a couple seconds, and there's some Kleenex right there.
Unsure of what I had done to be in jail, and attempting to piece together the timeline of events which brought me there. It is horrifying, humiliating, shameful, and a feeling I do not wish to forget. It is these memories and those of my last drunk which keep me sober. Through my work in therapy and AA, I have turned these memories into tools which I can better serve others and keep fresh the fact that I am powerless over alcohol. My sobriety date is December 5th, 2014. Since that date, I have been active in AA, attending meetings, sharing, and being of service. I have a sponsor, Stephen, and have worked through the 12 steps under his guidance. I chose to work with him as we had several similarities, and he has 31 years of continuous sobriety, which I also hope to achieve. I plan to continue to be part of AA after my BBS probation has ended, as I see my involvement in the program as vital towards maintaining my sobriety. When I need support, I know I can reach out to others and people going through something similar. Part of my probation has also been weekly therapy sessions, and I have found them to be very useful. Dr. Karras' viewpoint, feedback, and support have helped me to be more aware of my absolute thinking, my problematic way of relating to others in my personal life, and improved my coping skills, such as mindfulness, resourcing, and non-reactivity. My work with her has opened my eyes to a new way of living, and I plan to continue my work with her at the end of my probation as well. I realize that I would not have all the blessings in my life without my sobriety. I have a wonderful wife and seen the birth of my 2 beautiful children during sobriety, a 3-year-old and a 4-month-old whom I'm very grateful for. One of the most important aspects about my sobriety is that my daughter has never seen me drink. I work very hard and will do all that it takes to be sure that remains true for the rest of my life.
Want to take just a couple seconds?
I'm sorry?
Would you like to just have
I'll be
a
okay.
couple of seconds?
There have also been very difficult tests in my sobriety, such as handling my mother's estate and probate, setting up care for my grandmother with dementia, whom my mother was the sole caregiver, witnessing my grandmother's death, and my own health scare recently. My involvement with support of others, coping skills, and willingness to reach for support has been instrumental in keeping my sobriety. Prior to sobriety, I would likely have drank to manage my emotions, and now have tools to fully embrace all that life offers rather than numbing myself to it. I feel that my work in sobriety has also improved my skills as a therapist. I am better able to build rapport with others and be more empathetic, as I know how much effort and support is needed to make large lifestyle changes. In my work in county mental health, we see several individuals at various stages of recovery, and I can use my own experiences to offer hope and encouragement to others on their journey. I have always taken my work very seriously. I never drank alcohol at work or allowed it to impact my decisions at work. Over the past 2.5 years of my probation, I have complied with every term. I have completed a relapse prevention program, participated in weekly therapy, and attend 3 AA meetings per week, while also completing every selected date for biological fluid testing, unless there were extreme situations, such as the San Bernardino terrorist attack, which happened in my town, and my hospitalization in January of this year. I am requesting an early termination of my probation, as I would like to spend more time with my family during the week and have more ability for advancement with my employer. I am fortunate to have become licensed and been able to continue to work after my charges, and would one day like to support others in training once I have more experience as an LCSW. It would also be financially beneficial for my family and I, would be better able to pay off student loans and manage the costs of a growing family. On January 22nd of this year, I was hospitalized after having chest pain at work. I had never had a health scare before and was sure that it was not going to be something serious. However, upon arrival at the hospital, I was told I had damage to my heart and more tests were necessary. At that moment, I had a wave of fear crash over me. So many positive memories that I have had that I may never have again. The so-called life flashing before your eyes experience. I was recalling the birth of my daughter, my son, my wedding day, all the potential memories I wanted to have in life, such as walking my daughter down the aisle, graduations, and the rest. Not one of these involved drinking. Not one. If I were to return to drinking, I would likely not be a part of any of these experiences. I want to fill my life with as many of these positive experiences as possible. That is why I will continue to take steps to protect and nourish my sobriety for many years to come. This is a lifelong journey, and I plan to do the daily work necessary to improve my life and maintain my professional career. Overall, I am thankful for what probation has offered me. It has allowed me to continue to work in my chosen profession after I had been reckless in my personal life. I have become more responsible, and I have realized now how I was drinking was leading me on a fast track to ruin my life and potentially hurt or kill someone else in the process. I feel very lucky to be able to be here before you, having taken full advantage of what I believe of what this probation is intended to do, which is to provide me with consequences and a time frame to correct my mistakes before irreparable damage takes place. I am now able to see my triggers more clearly, take steps to manage and feel my emotions, while being able to take the next indicated step in order to appropriately address these issues in my life. I hope I have conveyed to you the strength of my motivation to maintain sober, the lengths I have taken to achieve the 3 years of sobriety, and that I will continue to advance in my profession with the safety and well-being of my clients in mind. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Haro, questions?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Ontiveros. Is this one working? I think this one works better. Okay. What was your sobriety date again?
December 5th, 2014.
When did your probation for the August 27th, 2014 conviction end?
August 23rd of, I believe it was 2017.
Okay, so last year.
Yes.
Did the terms of that probation prohibit you from consuming alcohol?
Yes.
Do you ever have the urge to use alcohol?
At present, no.
Okay. And you currently attend AA meetings, correct?
Yes.
If you're reinstated without probation, would you continue attending AA meetings?
Yes.
Do you have a time frame for how long you think you'd continue attending them?
I don't foresee an end date for that.
Thank you. Do you have any criminal convictions that the board is not aware of?
No.
Are there any current criminal or civil charges pending against you?
No.
Those are all the questions I've got. Thank you.
Okay, board member questions. We'll start on this end this time. That throw you off?
It's always good to be on your toes.
I don't want anyone to feel slighted.
That's all right. Good morning.
Morning.
How are you? Thank you for coming in here today. Have a couple of questions for you. Could you help us understand a little bit what's your motivation for wanting to end your probation early? It's been a little over 2 years.
It's about a little over 2.5. A little over 2.5 years. Well, during the week, it leaves me less time with my family due to the other additions that I have to attend to during the week. My daughter goes to bed at 7. I like to be there more so during the day after work. And also, I feel that I have met the conditions that and or intended with the probation, which is to show my the care and concern that I needed to have for my license and my lifestyle, and I've made those changes in my life, and so I feel like I would benefit from having the termination be ended. The probation from ended early due to that.
Okay. One of the things we see pretty regularly is that probationers, when they're on probation, are able to do a really good job of following the rules and doing what's expected of them. But one of the things that's important to me is that I hear from a probationer what they've learned about what led to the situations that led them to be on probation. And I'm wondering what you've learned or what insights you have about what led to those incidents and with the alcohol use, being found by the freeway driving under the influence. What contributed to that? What was...
In my past, I had really felt like I could only experience two different types of emotions, which would be, numb and pure ecstasy, which I've been able to see that's not realistic. That's set me up for failure in a lot of ways. I feel better able to deal with life in a different way. I'm managing my stressors without having to turn to something else to help me feel like it would be okay. As I mentioned in my statement, going through those difficulties sober without having the intention of drinking has really shown me that it's possible for me. It's doable for me. If I keep doing these steps for my life, if I keep maintaining what I need to do to have managed them in the first place. And so I feel I've matured a lot in the past, 3 years. I look back at the thinking patterns I had, and I don't see that in me at present at all. I wonder, how did I even get to a place where that was okay, where I could make those decisions and think that it was a good idea for me to drink. And at that time, it was so many other factors in my life I just wasn't aware of. And now I feel better equipped and better able to see and accept life in a different way. I hope that answers your question.
That helps. And so I want to applaud you for your attendance with your psychotherapy. It seems like that's something that you have consistently participated in. But one of the things that I've noticed is that your therapist didn't really write much information about what sort of insights or things you've learned in therapy. So I would like to know, you described a second ago about you experiencing only numbing or ecstasy, kind of this bipolar sort of emotional connection with life. And I'm wondering, what have you learned about your past that has contributed to that sort of limited emotional experience?
Okay. Well, definitely my absolute thinking pattern, the black and white. This is great. This is horrible. That was how I used to see the world. And now I see a lot more of the gray span in between, being able to cope with things in the moment and allowing them to pass without having to immediately react on something and make a decision that could lead me to have more dire consequences. I've seen more insight and development into my relationships with others, being able to navigate complicated situations with family members, with friends, in a way that I didn't have to feel overwhelmed, feel shunned by people, and turn to other things like alcohol to cope with that. And being able to, I guess, manage the stressors of life in a way that I didn't have to resort to that go-to. I can now turn to other people, turn to friends, talk about it, use other skills that I have within myself to manage it, just slowing my thought process down, where I don't have to shut it down completely. Something that I need to add to my body to do that. I can manage those stressors myself better. So those are, I think, the three main things I've seen change in my life, and I use those on a daily to manage the, the stressors at work, changes with family, all the things that come up on my day-to-day life that used to just accumulate. Now I just let them come, let them stay, and let them go.
And I just have one last question. You actually gave us a sheet that outlines your attendance at a self-help meetings beginning in January of this year. So I have two questions related to that. I was wondering, had you been attending the self-help meetings before January of this year?
Yes, but throughout my probation, I just added that because I hadn't submitted it through my next quarterly report, which is due in April.
Okay, so it sounds like this is a continuation of support you've been attending. You just wanted us to see that you've been going this year.
Yes.
All right, thank you. I have no more questions.
Good morning, and thank you for coming. What specific measures you have to prevent any relapse, and what kind of support system do you have to help you out?
Well, one thing I notice more so is my mood in regards to others. And I notice when I'm more irritable with people or if I'm isolating, there's something still lingering for myself that I need to either write about, journal, talk to someone about, connect to someone. So those are some of the resources I use in addition to attending AA, speaking to my sponsor, speaking to others in the program. I plan to continue attending therapy just at a reduced frequency. And so having that space to process some of these feelings in a safe area and with someone who has shown me so much support as well.
What kind of self-care do you have, like exercise or meditation, to help you?
Meditation is part of my daily practice. I try to do that at least 10 minutes a day. Exercising right now, not so much due to my heart condition. They've requested I just take it easy for a little bit, but I do try to walk with my daughter, take the dogs out. Also just having that time before bed without anything like TV, just spending time with my wife, talking, reviewing the day. All those things really help me to kind of shed the stressors of the day on a daily basis.
You're requesting for early termination of probation. Would you consider a request for a modification of probationary terms if the early termination is not granted?
Yes, I would.
Thank you.
Good morning. So thanks for being here. Can you tell us how old were you when you started drinking?
I was about 16 years old.
So it's a good amount of time.
It wasn't continuous during that time frame. That was just when I first drank.
So, so can you describe a little bit, your alcoholism, mostly I just want to, hear about, your, you don't have to give us all the details, but just kind of like your interpretation of your experience of alcoholism.
At first, it was something that was just at parties or with friends and something that amplified the good time we were already having. And at some point, it became used more in a way to kind of manage my emotional state. And that's when it became more frequent and more problematic. And since that was in my probably mid-20s, that started happening. And it just progressed up until the events that I'm here for, which really brought to light how much of an impact it was having for me and how much I was depending on that to get me through life. And so, the work I have been doing in AA and in therapy have really shown me that I am capable of managing this differently, and with the right supports and with the new skills that I have for myself, that I'm able to manage those stressors in a way that I don't have to use alcohol whatsoever. All these things that have happened, the positive things, and the birth of my son and my daughter, and the deaths of my close family, would all in the past probably have led me to drink. I would have drank just because those events happened, and to be able to not only go through those situations without the urge to drink, and with the support of other people, and being able to feel the emotions related to that grief and loss, or that happiness, and let that be enough. has, for me, been a miracle. And so I'm really grateful for this opportunity and these skills that I have to live life in a completely different way than I had been before.
I think you partially answer, my next question, which is about, the stressful life events. Being parents are not easy. Raising two children and, and trying to be, supporting the family financially. So I guess that, to move forward, what kind of values do you have inside yourself, to make sure that you don't revert back to where you were before?
I believe that this probation offered me the structure as to how to live life in a different way. And setting out in my life the mandatory requirements to do this has now made it absolutely more voluntary for me that I want these things in my life. I want that support I had from my sponsor and from AA and in therapy and in connecting with other people. And I'm sorry, I feel like I forgot part of your...
No, I'm just asking about, basically, what are your, the value that to guide you, what revert back to your drinking or the old coping mechanism.
Yes. And the most powerful thing for me is my family and my daughter and the way she looks at me as a father. These are all things I've gained in sobriety because I'm sober. And I never want to see that change in her eyes. And so I will do whatever it takes to maintain that. It's so powerful for me to know that I've been able to address this before she was born and been able to have a new life for myself, that she won't have to see that past in me. And that motivation for me is my large driving force to maintain this, because I never want to see that change, and I would do anything to maintain this so that she will always look at me in that way.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in. If you were to be off of probation, would you continue weekly therapy?
I would continue therapy, maybe not at a weekly frequency. I would ideally twice a month continue therapy.
And you had mentioned earlier one of the reasons you wanted to do early termination is because of the time it takes, which it does take a lot of time. Is that more due to the wanting to spend more time with your family or working, or is it more due to that you feel like a certain level of stability, not just in your sobriety, but in your mental health in general?
Can you repeat that second?
Yeah, so I'm just trying to figure out the motivation. Why not continue weekly?
Well, the financial cost adds up, and I feel like I'm at a stable place in regards to managing those stressors that come up at the moment in a better way, and I feel like the two times a month would be better suitable for me, and to balance that family and work time in regards to still maintaining my own self-help, self-needs, and make it a little bit more balanced for me at the time.
Okay, so if you were wealthy and had more time, you might go more often.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And in terms of your attendance with 12-step, how often would you do that if you weren't on probation?
I would presume initially to continue the 2 to 3 a week for some time. I don't foresee it ever going below that, because at that point, for me, it wouldn't be as helpful. I feel like it's good to see people regularly and to be active.
So I do want to congratulate you on your 3 years of sobriety, because that's a lot, and it seems like you've made a huge shift. And I don't know how much you know about the addictions research, but you're also in your infancy with your sobriety too. So we want to try to support you in the best way we can, but continue doing what you're doing. It sounds like you're really on a good path right now.
Questions? I think any questions I might have had have already been asked. Thank you.
Okay, I have a quick question. First of all, Max Disposti, but am I the only loud one here? Because everybody's whispering today. I can't hear him, and it's just me. Sorry, sometimes I don't even need a mic. But anyway, it's good. Mr. Ontiveros, congratulations for your progress. I think it looks from the letters that we received that you made really the best out of a very difficult situation. So we congratulate you for that. I have a question in regards to the probation terms. If there is anything that, besides the things you already mentioned, if there is anything that this board would consider in regards to changing something with your probation terms, if even, what would be the things that really challenge you the most when it comes to the terms and the conditions of this probation? If you would change something, what would that be?
Probably the frequency of therapy and also the biological fluid testing. That adds another variable to every day that I have, and in regards to picking up my children from my family, and that leads to some difficulty as well, but I make it a priority, and as I mentioned, I really try to attend to every instance that does come up, but those are the two that really stand out for me as more prohibitive or difficult for me at the time, at the present.
Okay, that would be it. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for coming in. I just have a question to share with us a little bit about your job is under the Mental Health Services Act. It's an MHSA?
I believe that's part of their funding. I work through just a county mental health
You work
clinic.
through the county behavioral health system. Just to give us a brief idea of what a typical workday is for you and what the population you work with is.
I work with adults aged 18 through 59 and a half with a severe and persistent mental illness. I typically do 2 clinical assessments a day in addition to therapy services. We do offer some groups as well, but I'm not involved in groups at the moment. So my typical day would involve those 2 assessments and 1 or 2 therapy clients.
So you remain in the office?
Yes.
During the day, because there are some situations where home calls are made and that kind of thing. That's a difficult population. So I'm wondering what kind of supports at work is pretty stressful usually.
Well, I feel like that's the only job I've had since I've been registered and as an intern. I feel comfortable working with that population, and I definitely utilize my coworkers when we need to debrief about instances that come up, or if there's difficulties that we're having with the client or people that we need to consult about. So I feel we have a good team at the clinic that I'm able to turn to and manage some of the difficulties that do come up while we're serving the clients that we serve.
You enjoy working with that population?
Yes.
Yeah, that's terrific. It's certainly needed. Thank you very much. That's the only question I had.
Hi, Christine Whitlisbach. First of all, I was having a hard time hearing you, so if you've touched on this already, I apologize. But I was wondering, you said it was important for you to be active in AA, and you thought that you would just continue going 2 or 3 times a week, and you said you had a sponsor, and you said you talked to people in the group. So my questions revolve around what it looks like for you to be active in that group. So my question is, how long have you had your sponsor?
I've had him for about a year.
About a year. Have you worked the steps with him?
Yes.
What step are you on now?
I'm doing the maintenance between 10, 11, 12.
Okay. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions by board members? Aro, do you have any further
No
questions?
further questions.
Ontiveros, anything you wish to say in closing?
I appreciate the chance to be up here and the opportunity this has provided for me. And I appreciate your time and consideration in reviewing my petition. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. With that, the matter submitted. The record is closed. If you wish to order a transcript, you can pick up a document from the court reporter before you leave, all right?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you again. Let's see, the next matter is, I may mispronounce this, Brever. Is that right?
Okay.
Okay, on the record in the matter of the petition for modification of probation, right?
Yes.
Okay. And
Can you hear me?
involving Judy V as in Victory Brever. And you're going to represent yourself today, Ms. Brever?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. This is OAH case number 2018-010689, a shorter agency number, MF 2014-125. My name is Carl Engelman, Administrative Law Judge assigned to sit with the board today. For the record, a quorum of the board is present. Ms. Haro, would you identify yourself for the record?
Yes, Deputy Attorney General Summer Haro. I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I'm here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but it is intended to protect the public interest. I'm here to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. I'd like to first mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 1.
Before you do that, I just want to
Yes.
make sure, Ms. Rivera, I know you've heard the admonition I've given to the prior petitioners, but I just want to make sure you understood that having chosen to represent yourself, you could have been represented by an attorney at your own expense in these proceedings?
I understand.
Okay. Please continue, Ms. Haro.
All right. I'd like to offer into evidence as Exhibit 1 the petition packet with accompanying documents. The board members and petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same set of this exhibit. Exhibit 1 generally consists of the petition for modification with attachments. Those attachments include an order for dismissal in Ventura County Superior Court case number 2013-023-011, a letter of explanation and letter from probation analyst regarding completion of 1-year disciplinary probation, a letter regarding rehabilitation efforts and letters from therapists, and a letter regarding petitioners being safe to practice as a counselor. The petition packet also includes 4 letters of recommendation or support, which are by colleagues at Rancho San Antonio Boys Home, Rancho San Antonio Boys Home, a letter from the board's enforcement manager verifying completion of 3 semesters of coursework in alcohol substance abuse, the board's August 15th, 2016 decision adopting the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, petitioner's psychotherapy quarterly reports, supervision quarterly reports and performance evaluations, the notice of today's hearing, and petitioner's registration history certification. At this time, I offer this packet into evidence as Exhibit 1.
Okay. Ms. Rivera, you have any objection to my receiving your petition and supporting documents and evidence?
I don't, Your Honor.
All right. One in evidence. Please continue.
Thank you. I'll now provide a brief summary of petitioner's license history with the board. On June 20th, 1995, the board issued licensed marriage and family therapist license number LMFT 32458 to petitioner. On July 17th, 2015, the board filed accusation number MF-2014-125 against petitioner. The accusation alleged 3 causes of disciplinary action, for a substantially related criminal conviction, dangerous use of alcohol, and violation of the Marriage and Family Therapist Act. The accusation arose from petitioner's June 2nd, 2014 conviction for violation of Vehicle Code Section 23152, which was driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs, a misdemeanor. The accusation also alleged a disciplinary consideration of the board's December 8th, 2009 decision in the matter of the accusation against Judy Virginia Brever, case number MF-2008-996, which revoked petitioner's licensed marriage and family therapist license number LMFT 32458 and placed petitioner on 1-year probation with terms and conditions. Petitioner successfully completed that prior probation. In March 2016, petitioner entered into a stipulated settlement. In doing so, she admitted the truth of each and every charge of accusation number MF-2014-125. The stipulation provided for the revocation of license stayed on 5 years probation pursuant to the following terms. That petitioner participate in a psychological psychiatric evaluation, psychotherapy, 2 semester units in the field of alcohol or substance use and or abuse, abstain from controlled substances and submit biological fluid testing and samples, abstain from alcohol and submit biological fluid testing and samples, attend dependency support program, obey all laws, file quarterly reports, comply with probation program, participate in interviews with the board, provide notification to the board of change of place of employment or place of residence, no supervision of unlicensed persons, notification to clients, notification to employer, violation of probation provisions, that petitioner maintain a valid license, provisions regarding a license surrender, that petitioner have terms of regarding an instruction of coursework qualifying for continuing education, petitioner provide notification to referral services and reimbursement of probation program. On August 15th, 2016, the board adopted the stipulation as its order. That decision became effective September 14th, 2016. Petitioner is now petitioning for modification of her probation to have 1, therapy as needed, 2, to reduce the drug and alcohol screening, and 3, to terminate formal supervision. Because the burden is on petitioner, I have no further statements but reserve the right to question petitioner.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Rivera, now is your opportunity to provide any additional information by way of testimony of your petition. Would you stand and raise your right hand to be sworn? I solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony you shall give in this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And just for the record, you are Judy Virginia Brever. You are the petitioner for modification of the terms and conditions of your probation, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, what would you like to tell the board?
First, I'd like to thank you for inviting me here today. I appreciate the opportunity, and I never thought I would say this, but I feel grateful for the discipline. I wasn't going to do this. I was sort of angry in the beginning about all that was required, and after starting and participating, it has helped me a great deal, and I just want to say thank you. And I'm grateful that I'm grateful for the discipline. I do believe it's helped me a great deal. I don't know what else to say.
Well, I think the board would be interested in why you are seeking modification of the 3 areas of your probationary order.
The formal supervision, Sharon Covington's been my supervisor for 22 years. And they asked her to formalize that, and she does. She'll continue to be my supervisor until we both retire, so that won't be an issue, just the formalized part of it, of her having to submit the reports. The biological fluid testing, I requested modification on that. It's financially, it's a lot of money. I don't mind going. I do have a medical condition of ulcerative colitis, and I have a certain window. Sorry. No, I'm okay. I have a certain window, so I call in at 5 in the morning. And there's times when my work requires me to go to meetings like downtown or in different parts of Los Angeles, and I usually do the fluid testing in the morning, so I have a certain window to be able to do that because I never know what's going to happen at work for me to have to stay later, so it creates some stress, mostly financially, but mostly because it's just been difficult for my colitis. It's been difficult for my schedule. There's times when we have to hospitalize youth, and I can't just say, sorry, I have to go do a UA. So, what's the other? Oh, therapy. I've been in therapy off and on quite a while. This therapist has been really helpful in the area of alcohol abuse, and I've seen her every week. She and I both agree that weekly is not warranted, and that I've learned a lot from the situation I put myself in. And she's glad that I'm attending the dependency program, that I have a sponsor and a good support system. So both of us feel that's not, the frequency is not warranted at this time. Not sure how else to answer this question.
Just one follow-up question. On your call-ins for testing, how often during a month do you actually have to go in for testing?
About 4 to 5 times a month. I just never know what day it's going to be, and sometimes it's like, oh my God, I have to be at this place, and the testing isn't really the issue. It's just difficult, and so I'm asking for a modification.
Okay, Ms. Harrell, questions?
Yeah. How often do you currently attend therapy?
Weekly.
How long have you been doing that?
Since with this therapist?
Yes.
Since the beginning in September, I think we started. We've been together about a year.
And on your petition, you ask that the terms be modified to have therapy as needed. What does that mean? How often is as needed?
I think when I feel that I need to talk about something, I'm having some type of stressor in my life, that I would call Sherry immediately and set up an appointment. I could see seeing her monthly. I could see whatever is decided. But I've learned a lot. I have a wealth of knowledge. I've been in a lot of different types of therapy, and it would just be appreciated if that could be less.
Are you currently in a dependency support program?
Yes, I am.
Do you consider yourself to have a problem with alcohol?
I do.
How often do you attend that dependency support program?
It depends. I absolutely attend AA weekly. I have a meeting that I just love and wouldn't want to miss. And I go to Al-Anon weekly. I go to other AA meetings. I really like the AA meetings. Plan to continue those.
What's your sobriety date?
September 12th, 2016.
Do you have any criminal convictions the board's not aware of?
I don't.
Are there any other current criminal or civil matters pending against you?
No.
Those are all the questions I've got for now.
Okay, questions by board members? I'll keep this pattern.
Tell me again your sobriety date.
September 12th.
And the arrest was in July of that year?
No, the arrest was 2013. I think it was in July.
So there was quite a gap.
Well, there's a gap. Sobriety is considered 365 days of continuous sobriety. So there were long periods of time I didn't drink, and there was times that I would have something to drink. Yes.
And over how many years was alcohol an issue for you?
I'd say in the last couple of years, it's been a problem.
The couple of years before the arrest,
Yes. Sorry. Yes.
No, that's.
I'm nervous.
That's it. Thank you very much for coming in.
No further questions, but thank you for being here.
When you were answering the attorney's question on AA, so how many times a week do you, I heard you say weekly, how many times a week?
1 to 2 times a week.
1 to 2 times a week, and then you also do Al-Anon 1 to 2 times a week?
Yes.
Okay, so you're in meetings 3 to 4 times?
2 to 4 times a week. Yes.
A week.
Always 2. But
And you've been on probation for a year and a half?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, thanks for coming. You said that, for example, your weekly AA meeting that you love, that you would always continue to do that, or that you really find that useful. Do you not find the Al-Anon meeting as useful? You didn't have the same enthusiasm, so I was just curious.
Don't have the same enthusiasm. It's helpful, and I attend, and I found a group that's that I like. I don't look forward to going as much as I do to my Saturday morning cafe AA meeting.
Okay. And then, so there was something. I noticed your letters were from 6 months ago. Was that for the expungement, or was it in preparation for this? I just noticed there were a little.
For this, when I applied for modification, it was in September, but the board meeting in November changed for the first time, so it delayed me.
Okay,
coming.
that makes sense. Thank you. And do you have a sponsor?
I do.
How long have you had your sponsor?
I'd say about 6 months. I worked the steps through my addiction studies program and the class that I took, but I decided it would be a good idea to get someone one-on-one, even though my therapist specializes in codependency and addiction as well.
Okay. And so you worked the steps already. Are you continuing to work the steps?
Oh, yes.
What are you working on now?
I'm finishing step 4. It's taking several weeks.
And then so one of the parts of sobriety that's important is to have a sober lifestyle, which not only includes not using, but the people you're around are sober friends. And based on some of the stuff that we read, I'm curious about your exposure to people who still drink or use in your current life situation.
Well, ironically, I'm exposed to a lot of people use alcohol. It hasn't been a problem for me to be in social situations with those people. We're very close. They know that I don't drink. They respect that. They don't drink like I drink. That's the difference.
So you don't have any difficulty being around people when they're drinking?
I don't. They seem to have more difficulty.
They have more
feeling
difficulty.
like, oh, why don't you drink that out of a wine glass? Like, it's not necessary.
Okay.
It's not been an issue.
Else. Yeah, I guess it's gone from my brain now, so it may pop back up. So
I do
come
have
back
close
around.
friends that don't drink. We just don't connect as much because of the distance.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for coming in. So, what is your understanding that after you completed your psych eval, that the evaluator recommended you to participate in Al-Anon?
I understand why he did that, why he recommended that. The relationship with my husband's been difficult, and I think moving more towards a dependent personality type, I think codependency has been an issue in my life for a very long time. My mom's a recovering alcoholic. She's getting her 30-year sobriety chip this month. So I definitely understand my relationship and the need to speak up, be confident, not bury my head in the sand by drinking alcohol when stress arises, that I have choices that, because I've been in a relationship or in a marriage for 26 years doesn't mean I have to be okay with decisions that are made that aren't mine. So I don't know that answered your question.
You did.
Okay.
So I want to dig a little deeper, because, just to follow up with Dr. Bruce's question. So about, your, seems relatively not as enthusiastic of going to Al-Anon. So what is the reason for that? That you're, compared to AA, that you seems, less enthusiastic in going to the Al-Anon meeting. And, what would be the reason for that?
I think I relate to the people in AA better. Maybe I haven't found the right Al-Anon meeting, but I've tried quite a few. It's not that I don't think I need to be there. I don't benefit from those meetings. They just don't feel the same to me. I understand the concepts. I understand the 12 steps and taking care of myself, the do's and don'ts, all the things that are read, all the readings I have done. I just really can relate to a lot of the people in my AA meeting.
So, now in terms of, going to a meeting is important, but also taking in and put into action,
Yes.
is far more important.
Right.
So what are the different, action steps that you have taken in order to address your codependency issue?
I think another reason the Al-Anon meeting seemed like another meeting that I need to go to is I do a lot of that work here with my therapist. That's her specialty. And she's just really helpful to me with that. And the feedback that I get, you don't get feedback in those meetings. You share and people are very nice and lovely. And but my therapist, she'll challenge me. She'll give me coping skills. She'll, follow up with me. I can text her or call her at any time. I'm not that I couldn't do that with someone from the Al-Anon list, but I feel comfortable with her. I have felt comfortable with my therapist, and I feel comfortable with a lot of people in the AA meeting.
I'm not sure you answered my question. It's
I'm
really
probably
about
too.
your life. What is the action that you have done, in order to address your codependency issue? It's about you.
Okay, sorry.
About, your values, your action, about,
Right.
your relationship and.
Right. I've set limits. I know when I can say no without feeling guilty. I am able to have a plan in place to leave a situation that I'm not comfortable in. I'm just more confident. I'm confident in not being silent. I'm confident in being able to seek support when I need it. It doesn't have to be secretive anymore. And I'm grateful for that.
And how long have you been attending the Al-Anon meeting?
I was attending, I'd say about 8 months now. Attending.
Thank you very much.
And that's only because it wasn't part of my discipline in the beginning. Okay.
Good morning. Could you tell us a little bit more what you would do if the stressors come back?
I would seek support. Number one, I call my therapist or another therapist that I've been to, my family. I'm pretty open and honest with everyone, my colleagues. We've been working together, most of them for over 20 years. We know each other's lives, and I have a lot of people that I can call for support.
Thank you. You also mentioned about the supervised practice. What is your understanding why you were put on supervised practice?
Formalized supervision.
Yeah.
The evaluator that did the testing recommended it.
But can you think of why she would recommend that?
I think he thought it would be a good idea. I was more closely monitored, or that there was I'm not sure how to word it. Accountability for my clinical skills, my practice, that they have to be reported by my supervisor.
Do you think you need supervised practice, or
I do.
Do you think you still need supervised practice?
I do. I've been supervised since I started in this field in 1984. I've had a supervisor. I've been accountable with evaluations. I've never had an issue in my work experience, and have received quite a few awards throughout my career. I think that I will continue to be supervised in practice. If it needs to be formalized, I think I'm fine with that. I just thought modifying that might. I'm going to be supervised anyways and receive evaluations. I'm not sure how to answer, but I guess.
I'll let my other colleague ask the follow-up question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Morning.
Fine.
Thank you for coming. I think I only have one question, but we'll see. It looked, and I'm asking, my first statement is more about clarification, just to make sure I'm understanding the facts correctly. 2012 was a very difficult year for you based on what you've described here. I want to acknowledge that, how tough that was with those numerous losses. But it sounds like also during that time you were also in AA and in therapy at the time? When you
I attended AA not as consistently, and I was in therapy at the time. I wasn't addressing the alcohol abuse like I should have been in 2012.
Okay. So here's my question. So my question is, you mentioned that your sobriety date was December 12th, 2016, which is about a year and a half ago?
No, September 12th, 2016.
September 12th, 2016, which was about a year and a half ago?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is, if this is working for you, which it sounds like it is, why should we consider making the adjustments now, considering you're still very early in your sobriety and this plan seems to be working for you?
I'm not asking for any adjustments in my self-dependency program. I just thought it might be helpful financially for myself and time-wise, and when I'm planning in terms of my profession, it's just very stressful. I have no problem continuing to do all of it. I just thought it would be helpful to have some type of modification, the stipulation.
So it sounds like the financial piece and just the convenience of not having the constraints of all of the requirements would ease some, provide some margin for you in your life. Okay. Are there other reasons that we should consider in terms of making this adjustment beyond those? Not that those aren't important, but I'm wondering.
Yeah, I talked about the stress from the biological testing and just the time frame, and the ulcerative colitis problem. It's just difficult, but it's doable. It all has been working and will continue to work long after I have stipulations in place. I really, truly in my heart know I have an alcohol issue. I'm dealing with it and will continue to. And that I needed to practice and internalize more skills in terms of being a codependent, and I'm doing that, and it feels really good. I'm really glad to be clear-headed, awake, and not putting my head in the sand. It's been very helpful to me.
Yes.
I have just a question to make sure I heard this correctly. It was either Dr. Brew or Ms. Wong who asked the question. Did you say that it was a comment you made, you said, I have friends that don't drink, but I just don't quite click with them. Is that what you said?
No.
What did you say?
No, the distance makes it difficult to get together. The distance. I don't hang out with them because we don't live near each other, but I do talk to them. I do connect on Facebook, things
So
like
the
that.
friends that you have that don't drink, you're not able to see as often. Is that
Not
correct?
as often, right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any further? Yes, on the end?
You have a so do you have other employment other than at the Boys Ranch, or do you maintain a private practice or anything like that?
I don't.
Has there ever been any consideration of you opening a private practice?
I have. I've seen private clients once in a while, not recently. Just it's the amount of work that I do during the day. I find I don't have a lot of energy for that afterwards. In the future, I would love to be able to work less and to work less in a facility and do more private practice, hopefully in the area of addiction as well.
If you could begin that process of working in a private practice, when would you foresee yourself starting something like that if you, in your ideal plan?
I was just promoted to clinical director, which has a lot of responsibility, so I don't foresee that anytime soon. Maybe 5 years, 10 years from now.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I remembered my question.
Okay.
So you've talked a lot about particularly your Saturday AA group and your therapy being really, really helpful on addressing the codependency issues. What behaviors have you engaged in for self-care? What do you do on a regular basis in addition to that?
I hang out with my daughter quite a bit because we like to explore. We hike and we go do things that we wouldn't ordinarily have thought to do. I exercise all the time. I hike, I run. We're actually in the process of switching gyms, so I do that. I love to read. I scrapbook, the old style. Creative memories. I make jewelry. My mom and I have that in common. We're lucky because of the gem show and where I'm from. So do a lot of stuff with beads. I like to keep up on the current things happening in our field because I find, people I work with, they get stuck in, there's a lot of things in sex offender treatment and addiction and that are moving forward, and just like to stay up on that. So I like to read and just discovered podcasts, so that makes it easier.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any further questions by board members? No? Do you have further questions?
No.
Anything else you want to say, Ms. Rivera, in support of your petition?
Again, I just appreciate your time, and it's nerve-wracking being up here, so I'm not sure I thoroughly answered a lot of questions that were asked, but I appreciate it.
And I think you heard me tell the other petitioners that at the conclusion of all of the hearings, the board will meet in executive session, decide each of the petitions, and will send you their decision. Yes? Okay, with that, the matter is submitted. The record is closed. Before you leave, pick up a document from the court reporter that, if you're so inclined, you can use to order a transcript. All right? Thank you again.
Your Honor, can we take a 10-minute before we hear the last two?
Yes.
Okay. Going to adjourn for 10 minutes. It is sorry. We are back. It is 10:50, 10:49. And now at this time, I'm going to turn this back over to Judge Ingeman.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to open the record then in the next petition. This is a petition for reinstatement submitted by Corey G. Nash. This is OEH case number 2018-01-0688. Agency number, we're back to the long ones here, 2002-018-001-301. We're convened on February 21, 2018. A quorum of the board remains present. Ms. Haro, would you state your appearance for the record, please?
Yes, Deputy Attorney General Summer Haro. I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I'm here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I'm here to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision. Judge, would you like to make any other statements before I move on?
Well, I'm going to ask Mr. Nash whether he intends to represent himself. Do you, Mr. Nash?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and did you understand, sir, that had you wished and at your own expense, you could have been represented by an attorney in these proceedings?
Yes, I understand.
Okay. And you were present during the earlier petitions? Yes?
Yes, I was.
Okay. So we're going to follow the same procedure. Was there something you wanted to say before we begin?
I was just wondering, am I loud enough or do I need to speak louder? Am I loud enough or do I need to speak louder?
I can hear you
Fine.
fine. There was just one case in which maybe I know I wasn't the only one, but I had difficulty hearing the petitioner, but I think it was because he was soft-spoken. So, yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. So,
Thank you.
okay, Ms. Haro, proceed.
Thank you. I would first like to mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 1, the petition packet with accompanying documents. The board members and petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same set of this exhibit. Exhibit 1 generally consists of the petition for reinstatement with attachments, the board's August 15th, 2016 default decision and order, the notice of today's hearing, petitioner's registration history certification. At this time, I offer this packet into evidence as Exhibit 1.
Okay, any objection to my receiving your petition supporting documents, Mr. Nash?
No.
All right, one in evidence. Please continue.
Thank you. Additionally, petitioner provided today to me three additional pages which have been distributed to the board. I ask that those be marked as Exhibit 2.
Just one moment. Okay, I know I had documents in front of me. Was this there was a document that had something to do with a notice by the Attorney General's office? Is that?
I do have extra copies.
Thank you. I don't know where I misplaced it, but at any rate. Okay, so do you wish this marked?
Yes, please.
Okay, this will be 2 for identification. Please continue. Sorry for the interruption.
No problem. I'll now provide a brief summary of petitioner's license history with the board. On November 6th, 2012, the board issued...
November 6th.
November 6th, 2012, the board issued Associate Clinical Social Worker Registration Number ASW 34850 to petitioner. On October 27th, 2015, the board filed accusation number 200-2014-000-416 against petitioner. The accusation alleged 2 causes of disciplinary action for conviction of substantially related crime and dangerous use of a controlled substance. The accusation arose, The accusation arose from petitioner's January 22nd, 2015 conviction for violating Vehicle Code Section 23152, Subdivision A, following his plea of nolo contendere. On or about November 9th, 2015, petitioner was served with accusation number 200-2014-000-416 at his address of record. On or about November 13th, 2015, petitioner signed and returned a notice of defense. A notice of hearing was served on petitioner's address of record, but petitioner did not appear at the hearing. On August 15th, 2016, the board adopted the stipulation as its order. The board adopted I'm sorry, and I've lost my packet. There is not a stipulation in this case. There is a default decision issued and signed on August 15th, 2016. That default decision became effective on September 14th, 2016. Petitioner is now petitioning to have his registration reinstated. And because the burden is on petitioner, I have no further statements but reserve the right to question petitioner.
Okay, does that complete your introductory
Yes.
comments? Okay, all right, Mr. Nash, now is your opportunity to address the board. Would you stand, please, and I will swear you in. You solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony you shall give in this proceeding shall be the truth, nothing but the truth. Thank you. And you are Corey G. Nash, just for the record. You are the petitioner for reinstatement, correct?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
So, to my understanding, I am giving you guys a little bit of background on who I am and where I come from. My name is Corey Nash. I'm actually the oldest of 5 children, and my parents are both active substance abuse users, and as a result of some of their, addictions, my family was split up. I was actually placed in foster care at the age of 5, and I aged out at 18. And from my entire time in foster care, I was motivated to become a social worker. And as a result of that, I left the city of Los Angeles to pursue education. I actually got my undergraduate education at Morehouse College. And during that time in the city of Atlanta, Georgia, I had a reputation on campus for being a kid from Compton who didn't use substances. I hung around a lot of people who smoked and drank. And it was just a part of the college culture. And for me, I rejected it because of my family background. And as a result, I graduated cum laude, and I earned a full tuition scholarship, and I actually earned my way into a graduate program at San Diego State University. And at San Diego State, I actually was a Cal SWEC recipient for the stipend program for social work. And as a result of my 4 years in Atlanta, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about what I can handle and what I'm willing to tolerate and the type of friends that I like. And at this time, relevant to this case, I was actually with a friend of mine from college in Atlanta. He had come to California, and at the time in college, he was a marijuana user. So coming from Baltimore, he asked me about marijuana. And we're in California. He's my friend. I already know what his interests are. And so I basically hung out with him during that day, which was December 13th, 2013. And in transport from Los Angeles back to Long Beach, where he was staying at the time with a friend, we got caught in a LAPD checkpoint. And so while at this checkpoint, they smelled his marijuana in my car. And because it was my car, I was, labeled with possession. And during that time, the police kept trying to give me numerous field sobriety tests. They gave me a breathalyzer, and I blew zeros. And I can sense their frustration. And because I had a substantial amount of marijuana on me that did not belong to me, he was kind of ignored in the situation. They gave me an opportunity to give my car to my brother. They would not give him the car because he wasn't a California licensed driver. And at that time, my brother took my car. They took me to the precinct, and I was under the impression that I was being charged with a DUI. And what they did was charge me with a felony possession of marijuana. And so when I bailed out and I went to the criminal court to follow up with this criminal charge, I was made aware that it was dropped and that a warrant was issued for my arrest because I had failed to appear for a driving under the influence charge. So with the city of Los Angeles having both of these court hearings in two separate courthouses on the same day, I basically went to the Metropolitan Courthouse downtown LA and informed them that I had another court hearing for a criminal charge, not a traffic violation. And they basically honored my bail, transferred it, and informed me that the felony possession charge was dropped and that I was now being charged with the DUI. And I asked them about the notification and how I was supposed to know about this. And they basically told me that it's my duty to follow up with my charges and make my own court hearings. So I went to the courthouse that I was scheduled to be at. They told me everything was clear. And then when I followed up and they transitioned my bail, I began this process. The first hearing was January 22nd. And I began this ridiculous process of having continuances in this courthouse for over a year, which I feel like was a violation of my rights to have a fair and speedy trial. My attorney told me that I would be in and out within 90 days. And I didn't even actually start the hearing proceedings until about, I want to say maybe August 2014. And at that time, when I decided to fight the charge, they couldn't even get a jury selected. And they changed my attorney about maybe 6 times because they felt like the case was weak and they didn't want to prosecute and they didn't want to go to trial. And I felt like my case was strong, which is why I wanted to go to trial. And so during that process, once they finally sent me to trial, I believe it took until 2015, January 22nd, 2015, for me to actually get in front of a judge for him to make a decision. And at that time, they attempted to move my courthouse from downtown LA to Pasadena. And I did not feel comfortable with that because of the jury selection. My attorney advised me to take a plea, and they made an arrangement for me to get a plea that basically stated I had to attend a Mothers Against Drunk Driving class, avoid police contact for a year, and then come back a year later and provide them proof that I attended 52 NA classes. So I completed all of their mandates. I showed up back to court January 2016, and what they did was drop my charge of driving under the influence and allowed me to choose a charge of disturbing the peace. So I was convicted for disturbing the peace, and they waived all of my fines. And since then, I've actually switched employers from the Department of Mental Health because of the complications with my license, as well as my contractual obligations through CalSWEC. I attempted to get my mental health employment as a payback, but the contract specifically stated that I needed to work for a child welfare agency. So at that time, I switched to my current employer, which is the Department of Children and Family Services for Los Angeles County. And as of October 2017, I have fulfilled my contractual obligations with CalSWEC, and I would like to exercise my right to return back to mental health and provide services from that aspect. But as of now, I'm ineligible because of my license status. And as far as my license is concerned, in September, I completed the law and ethics exam, and I was not even aware that my license was suspended until I went through the process to register for the clinical exam. Once I paid my registration fees and I attempted to register for the exam online, I kept getting an error message that said I was pending. And so I attempted to contact the Board of Behavioral Sciences several times, and I would say maybe the 5th or 6th time that I attempted to contact them, I was notified that my license was revoked and that I had these hearings that I didn't know about. And the reason I didn't know about it is because in November, when I responded to Senior Deputy Attorney General Thomas Rinaldi's request for information, I was actually going through a serious breakup with a girlfriend that I was living with. And so I had to relocate, and I guess you could say I was transient homeless at that time for a small period of time, and I did not receive any mail. I did not receive any notifications, and it looks as if I've been neglectful of my status and I did not want to defend myself in court, but that's not the case because I did respond immediately after I got this notification initially. I don't know if it was filed correctly or what, but I do know that I did not receive any notification to come to any courthouse to defend myself because I would have, and I've been dealing with this process. I was told to wait a year to even get this hearing. And so I've been dealing with this process ever since 2016, really trying to make sure that I can get licensed. And I'm just here now to figure out what it would take for me to get my license back because I've been charged with a crime that I clearly have evidence that I'm not guilty of. And I don't understand what else is necessary for me to defend my position. And I thank you guys for allowing me to come here to share my story and my experiences dealing with, I mean, I hate to say it, but profiling by a police department. And I mean, at the end of the day, I'm an advocate for children and families because of my circumstances. And I do recognize that mental health is the underlying cause of a lot of the issues in the community where I come from. And I just want to make myself more equipped and qualified to actually deal with these social issues. It's very frustrating to be a professional and to be in meetings with clients who have mental health issues, and I know exactly what's going on because of my experience, but I don't get the respect from my colleagues and my coworkers because I don't have these letters behind my name. So that's just where I'm at. I just want to be a better professional, and I just want to be more of service. And I would like my standing with the BBS to be rather clean.
Okay, Ms. Haro, questions?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nash. And I want to make sure that the board is clear in the explanation with this court record because it sounds like there's some timing issues that happened. So part of the petition packet included a court docket for...
There was a court disposition, which was my entire record from the first time I entered the courthouse to the, I don't even, countless continuances that they provided me month after month when I attended the hearings.
All right.
Mr. Nash, wait until counsel's complete her question.
Sure. Excellent.
You're anticipating the question, but you could be wrong in terms of what she's asking, okay? So wait until she finishes her question. Go ahead.
All right. So on page 13 of this document, it covers a proceeding that happened on January 22nd, 2015.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
And on the bottom third of the page, there's a reference to count 1, and that was the DUI count, correct?
Correct.
And the disposition on that was convicted.
Correct. It said.
But then on the next page, page 14, it has a court date of January 22nd, 2016, correct?
Correct.
And that shows that count 1, the DUI, was dismissed in furtherance of justice. Is this what the documentation that was part of what you're explaining to us about how there was kind of a 1-year deferment of that conviction?
Correct. My attorney actually advised me to plead no contest while they had a contingent conviction based on my performance during the year. And what they basically told me is that if I violated in any way, had any type of police contact, then I would have the maximum consequence of a DUI. And I accepted that because I knew that I would. I've never had any contact with the police other than this. So I knew that I would not have any arrest, or I don't have issues with drugs and alcohol. So I knew that I wouldn't put myself at risk. I really trusted myself at that time. And I'm actually proud that I was able to go a full year and then come back with the proof that I did everything they asked me to do.
All right. So as of January 22nd, 2016, that DUI conviction was dismissed and removed from your record, correct?
Correct. It is replaced with a disturbing the peace charge, and it is an infraction.
All right. And now kind of it looks like the timeline on the disciplinary proceeding for your license happened to occur during that 1-year period.
Yes. When I responded, in November 13, 2015, I basically explained in that response that all of my charges were pending and that I would give them the results as soon as I got it. And then when I got the results, I followed up and filed. And that's where I don't know what happened and what was lost in translation.
And you did explain to us that the reason you didn't attend the hearing on that accusation was because you never received the notice of hearing because you had moved.
Correct. I did not have an active mailing address for about 45 days. And I'm just a little disappointed that there was only one attempt, or I should say a certified mail was the only attempt to reach me when I have emails on files. I have my employer's information on file as well as my cell phone information, because I would have came immediately. I would have stopped everything that I was doing, such as the way I did today. I've been traveling since 4 a.m. this morning to make it to this. So this is a huge priority for me.
Currently, does the board have your current address of record in order to make contact with you?
Correct. As far as this petition that I submitted in December, all of that information is accurate, and I do not plan on moving at least for another year or two. So that information in Long Beach is correct.
Thank you. In your statements, you mentioned that your parents have issues with substance abuse.
Correct. It was the cause for me entering foster care, actually.
Have you ever had felt that you've had any issues with substance abuse?
No, I actually feel like my understanding and my self-control is rather unique. And I think that some of the experiences I've been in where I've actually turned down substances, like I can't even count how many times I've been in college and got teased for not smoking or drinking. Like I can't count it, but it's just a testament to my character, and I'm just focused on what I want to focus on, and seeing those, I guess, side effects of substance use in my community have always motivated me to keep them at a minimum. I'm not saying that I don't drink alcohol. I mean, New Year's just passed. I would say probably that was the last time I drank. And my birthday's coming up in March, and I'm celebrating it in Atlanta because that's where I felt like I grew up at, turning 30. So I'm sure I'll have a drink on my birthday. But I am not a person that has issues with substance use.
Do you have any criminal convictions that this board is not aware of?
Not at all.
Are there any criminal or civil charges pending against you?
Not at all.
Those are all the questions I've got. Thank you.
Okay, board members.
Good morning, Corey.
Hey, good morning.
I just want to say congratulations to the on the trajectory of life choices that you've made. There are a lot of people who have had very adverse childhood experiences and been in foster care who have not been able to progress to the way that you have. So I want to applaud you for that. I also went to an HBCU. I went to Tuskegee, so I'm very familiar with that I-95, 85 ride up and down the freeway. So, but congratulations on that. I do want to ask you a question, though, because it does sound like there has been a series of unfortunate circumstances that have happened to you. I'm very familiar with the reality of racial profiling and how the police... Can you hear me now? How the police do target young men of color. So I'm very aware that that exists and is alive and well here in the United States. But I'm wondering, as you look back at that situation, what can you take responsibility for that has led you to be where you are right now?
Well, at that time, I actually found out about an app called Mr. Checkpoint. So just kind of being more aware of the environment, that was one thing I learned. Also, just having friends who have, I guess you could say, substances or things that are at risk, I could have definitely taken better care to store it in the trunk like the law says. Let me see. I actually could have avoided being out so late in an area where I really don't frequent. I was on, I want to say Slauson and Figueroa in Los Angeles, which is considered South Central. I'm a person that's from Compton, and I live in Long Beach now. I work in South Central, and I know better. I shouldn't have just been out there at that time, and just being more, I guess, purposeful with my use of time. We were just kind of floating around, and I was just showing him LA, and I was being laxed about everything. So I think that I should have just been more purposeful in my destinations.
So, just for point of clarification, so am I understanding you to say that you could have had an app that might have allowed you to avoid the checkpoint? And let me finish. And then two, you two should have put the marijuana in the trunk instead of having it inside the car. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, because I feel like the smell that was in the car from his purchase is the only thing that they had to really try to search my vehicle and etc. And I mean, other than that, like I said, I blew zeros on the breathalyzer. I wasn't under the influence myself, so I felt like I was, being a host. I felt like I was just kind of being a chauffeur at that time, and it backfired because of certain careless choices, such as just having it out in the car and joyriding, for lack of a better word. That's what it felt like. I mean, we were just reminiscing on college, and I was showing them LA.
Can I ask you a clarifying question? And I don't want you to think that I'm being sarcastic.
Oh, not at all.
So was this marijuana purchased at a dispensary?
Correct. Correct.
Oh, so it was legally purchased. He had a card. Okay.
No, a friend of ours. The reason we went to LA was to meet with another friend of mine that could get it for him.
Okay, so somebody purchased it for you from a dispensary.
Correct. They purchased it for him on my behalf.
He didn't have a card. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Anything about that you think could have been probably better managed on your behalf? And the reason I'm asking these questions is you're asking us to reinstate your registration, which will lead to you being a licensed professional. And so there's a certain level of responsibility and penetrating decision making that needs to be maintained as a professional. And so I'm wondering what your thoughts are about how you could have better managed that.
Well, right now I feel like the climate is more lenient, like with these laws being passed, so I don't have to kind of be so paranoid about being caught with anything around me, just because I believe you can have up to 28 or an ounce legally. But I don't know if I should say that I want to disassociate with people like that, because I don't think that that's the case. But I think that just proper storage and actually caring for the cargo in a appropriate manner, just respecting what's going on. I think that like I said, I just took the situation too lightly, and I think that prioritizing whatever is being transported is the lesson that's learned there. So whether it's food, whether it's substances, whether it's weapons, I think that it should be stored properly. And I think that exercising better judgment as far as even the transport, I could have told him to just use it before we left, or could have told him to get it on his own and catch an Uber to where he was going. There were numerous decisions I could have made to avoid putting myself at risk.
What do you think kept you from saying something along the lines of, I am on the pathway of becoming a licensed therapist, and what you're asking me to do is illegal. I'm going to need you to find another way to get this transported. What do you think kept you from setting a limit like that?
You know what? Setting a limit like that is something that I've learned in my maturity, but I think that because this was 4 or 5 years ago and I was a lot younger, these are just lessons that I've learned just by going through life experience. I believe I might have been 25 at the time, and I'm about to be 30, so my entire frame of mind and my entire priorities are just different now.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I've grown up.
Thank you. One last question, and then I'm going to pass the mic. So you have a tremendous amount of life experience that would, I think, make you an asset to the profession. But I'm wondering, in your own thinking, sort of, what is it about your life experience that you think would make you a asset to the mental health field? What is it about?
I just think the amount of insight that I have into my own family structure and some of these things that actually caused substance abuse and domestic violence, just knowing what the risk factors are from personal experience would help me to support any of my clients. Myself having my own experiences with depression and anxiety as a result of my experiences, I can give concrete examples and life experience on how to cope. I think that just me being a product of this field, because when I went through my MSW program and I learned actually how to be a therapist, that was when I did the majority of my healing, and a lot of my trauma history was just put in perspective, and I was able to just learn as a professional and as a consumer of these services. So just being a product of the product and allowing our techniques and our practices to actually impact me personally so that I've grown and I've healed, it's just I don't think it gets any better than that. I think that going through what I went through and having a vivid memory of it gives me enough experience to connect with a lot of my peers and some of the harder to reach clients that we work with.
Thank you. And thank you for coming. I know this is a long way from Southern California. Thank you. No more questions.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for coming. The Deputy Attorney General asked you a few questions about the document, the Superior Court California, on page 13. She pointed out count 01 and 02, both deposition was they were convicted. And then she also asked you a question on the next page for count 2. It says the position was convicted, and then count 1 dismissed in fault of justice. So your response is that the both convictions were expunged, or is it just being dismissed? I'm confused about that.
So I don't recall going through a process for expungement. What they told me is that the conviction that was placed prior in 2015 would be dismissed. So to my understanding, count 1 was dismissed and that is not a factor. And count 2, the conviction stands because that was the deal that I took for the disturbing the peace charge. And during my process of switching employers, when they completed my background check, did a drug test, did a psychological exam for me to work for DCFS, none of that ever even came up in my interview. So to my understanding, my record doesn't have a charge of driving under the influence.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I want to follow up on that same question because now I'm not really familiar with the docket and all these documentation, but when I'm reading about count 1 and count 2 on page 13, so count 2, it's and that's the court orders and finding that the defendant was advised and understood that being under the influence of alcohol or drug or both impairs his or her ability to safely operate a motor vehicle, and it is extremely dangerous to human life to drive while under the influence or alcohol or drug or both, so and so. So it looks to me that count 2 really is about DUI. That's what the court record said. No?
No, I think
I'm just trying to understand. Yeah.
if I may, the records are confusing, but what it looks like, I think this is my best judgment, is that there was a conviction for, well, I'm not sure whether there was a conviction for both offenses, but there was a conviction for driving under the influence, and sentencing was deferred for a year on the condition, I can't remember what word you used, but I think it was a good word, on the condition that he participate in a MAD program, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I think there might have been one or more other requirements.
52 NA meetings and no
Yes.
police contact.
Yes, and so approximately 1 year later, having done those things which the court required, there was a dismissal of the DUI charge, and there was a plea to essentially disturbing the peace, 415 of the Penal Code, subparagraph 2. Is that what you understood?
100% correct.
Yes.
So it's like a conditional probation, something like that?
Well, courts, based on my experience, courts throughout the state have their own processes in terms of these kinds of dispositions of cases. Different words describe conditional pleas, deferred pleas, but it's something different than where there is an actual statutory provision by which there is a dismissal of a particular offense that essentially goes away by virtue of that penal. I think it's Penal Code Section 1000 is what I'm looking for. So
Yes, this one was 1385, which is the court has the inherent authority in the interests of justice to dismiss claims and charges.
So, and what the Deputy Attorney General has explained is in the interim, during that period of time, the board learned of the conviction, filed the accusation. I guess it was a statement of issues.
It was an
correct?
accusation. The notice of defense was filed.
Unfortunately, by the time the hearing took place, in which Mr. Nash could have come in and explained what had occurred in the court, and that conviction had been dismissed for the reasons he's explained, he did not get notice of the hearing. All decision not recognize this change. That was the basis for the revocation of his license.
Got it.
That he was no longer at that.
Correct.
Yes. Now, I'm sure the assumption I make is service was effective, in quotes, because the board is permitted to serve the address of record, and presumably that's what they did in this case.
Right. Thank you, Judge, Your Honor.
Well-
Wonderful legal lesson.
I was perplexed by what had happened, and when I talked to Ms. Haro, she had picked up on the same thing that was explained by Mr. Nash before coming here today.
So in that sense, now I have one, thank you. Now I'm clear, even clear as mud. But but I do have a follow-up question about, you filed for, for defense, and then you didn't receive the notice. So what kind of responsibility you take in also, in terms of failing to appear in court and, in that administrative hearing and.
So I was under the impression that once I submitted my paperwork, that was it. I didn't know that there was a court hearing to follow up. And so what I did was continue to be a therapist at the Department of Mental Health. I registered for my law and ethics exam. I studied, I passed, and I just continued to operate under the premise that I was okay. And I didn't find out that I was not okay until it was time for me to actually pass the clinical exam. And if I had known better, I would have been following up downtown numerous times. But I had no understanding of what was going on.
So, so are you aware of your responsibility that, when you moved, you have to keep, your address current with the board?
Correct. And my next contact with the board, I did update them with my address, and then that's when they continued to inform me that decisions were made prior to my knowledge. So basically I didn't have contact with the board from November until August. And in August, when I contacted them, I updated my information because I didn't realize that decisions were already made.
So, sometimes, licensees can also choose to give, to have, your address posted as your employer's,
right.
Address. So have you thought about that? And basically, because you filed the defense and, that time there are life issues and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, now your responsibility, is to give a address so that you can actually get the received mail.
During the time that I actually filed for my license, I was unemployed. I was unemployed. I was actually looking for a way out of San Diego because while I was waiting for my job through the CalSWEC agreement, it took me 8 months to get hired. And so during that 8-month process of waiting, because I didn't know that the county took so long to hire, just me being, naive, I would say maybe 4 months in is when I was looking for additional qualifications that would get me another job to get back to LA. And that's when I found this whole system. I didn't even know the BBS existed when I was in grad school. And I didn't know that I could be a clinical social worker. So once I saw that I could apply for an ACSW and it would make me eligible for a therapy position in LA, that was the only reason I applied. And then once I found out all the benefits, and then I realized what was really going on as far as mental health and this structure and your guys' guiding principles, that's when I bought into the program. And I really wanted to collect these hours and go through this process to get this qualification. So when I applied in November 2012, I didn't even get hired until May 2013. I didn't know, you know, the ins and the outs. I didn't have anyone walking me through it. I didn't have any mentors, no one influenced me to come get this license. I just did it because I needed a job, and I saw that the application for the job required an ACSW, and I was like, well, what is that? Where do I get that? Because I got a master's. And then when I found out, I applied, and it made me eligible for that position, and then I got hired.
Thank you very much.
Just out of curiosity, where did you get your master's?
San Diego State, which is also another party school that I managed to get through in 2 years.
So that I have a couple of questions sort of related to party school issues. So one is they had made the arrest based on an ounce, but was your
No, it
friend's-
wasn't an ounce.
Oh.
I was saying that legally nowadays we can have up to an ounce. At that time, if I had to recall, I think he might have only had maybe 7 grams.
Okay.
And so.
And he wasn't smoking in the car.
No, he was not actively
Okay.
smoking. No.
Thanks for clarifying that. So with your upbringing that you had and having to be raised in foster care and parents with substance abuse, and then you get to college and lots of college students abusing substances, not just using. I was just wondering what that was like for you, because then you clarified one piece of it by saying that it was legally purchased for medical reasons.
Right.
So being with a friend who needs it for medical reasons, I think, is different than being with friends who party.
Right,
And I wonder,
definitely.
like, would you have driven if it was somebody who was just buying a joint to go party, or back when it
If
was
I'm going
illegal?
to a party with him and that's a stop that we're making on the way, and I'm in party mode, then I'm gonna support my friend because I trust my ability to be responsible. I feel like going through 6 years of college in 2 cities where they're known for parties, Atlanta and San Diego, and I haven't had any issues. I graduated from school on time. I mean, I fulfilled all my obligations as a student. I really trust myself. I'm very secure in my ability to say no to things that I don't believe in, even on a personal level when it's not about ingesting substances. I'm very high on my morals and my values.
So you don't find yourself being judgy with your friends who use. And what if it was meth instead of pot?
See, the thing about meth is that I can readily see a lot of the damage. When I went to Atlanta and I saw so many of my friends using marijuana, it really changed my perception, because to me, growing up where I was from, marijuana costs you your basketball career. It'll make you drop out of high school. It'll make you broke. I mean, at the end of the day. And so when I get to a privileged college like Morehouse, where politicians, their kids are using marijuana and they're not struggling, they're not disheveled, they're not failing out of school. So it kind of dispelled all the myths that I had just growing up. But I mean, it didn't motivate me to indulge. It just motivated me to accept these people as my equals versus labeling them as losers or substance users like I did when I was growing up. Because in Compton, I never associated with anybody that was using, just because I saw that 9 times out of 10, the people that are smoking are probably hanging out late, probably gang members, probably selling. It was just a lot of things that I witnessed, and I was like, yeah, I don't want any parts of that. Whereas when I got to college, well, I mean, he does play basketball. He does have he got better grades than me. And, looking at people like that, it was just like, well, I guess I can be more objective. And that's actually helped me in my professional career, because now when people come in with substance issues, I can kind of see more of their backstory versus, oh, man, you're addicted to meth. It's like, well, what was the process? What are you actually trying to cope with? And in my professional experience, it really has just allowed me to be more effective, because now people talk to me, they open up to me. And even going to these NA classes when I went for the year, I just got to see the client base in a whole nother light, because even in those meetings, they're way more relaxed than they've ever been with me in a session. So it was just good.
So I see the progression of your position about people using marijuana in particular, but I guess I'm not really clear if your friends wanted to pick up heroin or meth on the way to the party, if you would still
So
have it
in some
the
of my
car.
research, I've looked at other countries and their stances on drugs and how they have different categories. And some drugs are hard drugs, some drugs are soft drugs, and I'm just looking at my friends and what they use and the lifestyle that accompanies their use. So for me, the people that are using harder drugs usually have a lifestyle where they're unemployed, where maybe they have a broken family, maybe they don't have a lot of support, and I don't have friends like that.
So it's more about how your friends would manage whatever they're doing
And how it would affect my lifestyle.
rather
Because
than following the letter of the law.
yeah, I mean, in a way, but once again, that's just my upbringing. I come from a place where, like, we didn't respect the law that much, and I'm maturing in my appreciation for the world around me because I've had to acclimate to society instead of just being in this urban bubble. So I definitely respect, you know, what's been going on as far as the laws and the transitions and how they're being more lenient, but my own values won't allow me to be around people that use hardcore substances because of what I saw that it did to my family. My family, they don't use marijuana. They use crack cocaine. So my understanding of the consequences from harder drugs is very real.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the clarity.
I do have a question. I'm sure I'm going to mess it up, so I apologize in advance. And I do want to recognize your persistence.
Thank you.
I mean, actually, just really impressed with the fact that with what you've done. And I'm still just a little trying to figure out where you are understanding wise. And hopefully that'll help you understand what our role is too, which is public protection and making sure that therapists that are working with vulnerable populations, including substance abuse, kind of have their thoughts together on the whole process. And the one thing that I'm still struggling with just a little tiny bit, and I'd like you to talk about some more, is the fact that, and I think Leah was trying to get at this, and you gave us a really good understanding of the personal, the interpersonal stuff. But there's that whole pesky legal thing of driving with at that point, it was not legal as it is today. It was purchased under somewhat nebulous conditions. And then Leah was just pushing, I think, a little bit to say, what if that had been something like heroin? Would you still put it in your car and driven with it? Because legal issues like that, talk to me about that.
So, as I mentioned, I guess my take on drugs is rather experienced, and I don't think that I will put myself at risk by associating myself with people who are hardcore drug users. I don't have a tolerance for people that destroy themselves. At the end of the day, I'm a social worker, and I'm here to help people do better. And I think that if a friend of mine made some questionable choices to harm themselves, I would intervene as a professional, and I would not be supportive of the choices that they are making to destroy their lives. And I can even make that argument with alcohol. I don't hang around people that get overly intoxicated, so I don't think that I would tolerate someone using hardcore drugs in my presence.
Yeah, and I think you're still missing it a little bit because it's
Would
not
I drive
the person,
around with
it's not the
someone
personal.
who has these substances?
One at a time.
Hang on one sec. It's not the personal. It's not the interpersonal. It's that scrutiny that as a professional you have not to break the law.
Correct.
So even if you're not drinking, even if you're not with somebody who's drinking, they give you something that's okay. They give you a bottle of alcohol and say, hey, could you carry this to the party? I mean, you're putting yourself at risk. Do you see that?
Yes,
that
I definitely see that. And I don't see myself accepting high risk. And I don't see myself transporting anything that could get me in jail. Like my little small experience with law enforcement and dealing with this whole process, I never want to do anything illegal again. Like at the end of the day, this wasn't fun for me. And this literally knocked off my whole process on how I see my life. Like I'm supposed to be licensed by now at least 3 years in, according to my plans. But because a minor decision to support a friend cost me a lot of time, I recognize that I'm not willing to put myself at risk for anyone on any level if it means jail time or it means a interaction with law enforcement. At the end of the day, I don't want to give the police any reason to stop and search me or to give me any additional questions or any consequences. I don't care to interact with law enforcement, and I have not since this, or even prior. So I'm very tolerant of what the law expects.
Thank you. You do understand our
No, I
pushing
do.
on it a little bit.
I do. And just seeing all the proceedings prior to me, I definitely have an idea of the culture and what the board's expectations are as far as the type of therapist that you guys want to support. So, and I want to be one of those therapists.
Thank you for your patience on this.
I would just like to say one thing. When board member Jonathan down there asked you what things you have learned, and you mentioned 3 of them. One of them that you mentioned was that you were at Slauson and Figueroa, I
Correct.
believe, and you thought you shouldn't be there. And I'd
Correct.
just like to say, sir, you belong on any road in this country that you so choose to belong to. And it's very disheartening that that was something that you learned was not to be in that place. So that's what I would like to say, and thank you for coming in.
Well, I thank you for supporting my perceptions of myself and challenging my experiences so that I can be more open-minded. I appreciate that.
I don't have any question whatsoever. I just want to thank you, Mr. Nash, for being here. I hope this didn't feel like reopening a case that was long time closed. I feel that I command your respect for the law after everything that has happened. I don't know if I would have felt the same way, to be honest. Sorry, Your Honor. But sometimes to me, from past records, it looks like every time court records are confusing, it's because someone screwed up somewhere and they didn't want to admit it. Sorry to be so straightforward with that. So I commend you for that, for being here today. My only question at the beginning was, so why we couldn't reach you before the registration was denied, and that was my only answer that I needed to know. Things like that happen to a lot of people, not to have a fixed residence. We hope that this was a lesson for all of us, and that's it for today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. Thank you very much for coming in. Could you, and if you explained this earlier and I missed it, I apologize. Just wondering if you get your registration, what changes in your employment status?
So one thing will be that I'm eligible to return to the Department of Mental Health as a supervisor, which I'm looking forward to that because as a worker, I had a lot of complaints about my supervisor, and I felt like she had some biases towards our clients. So I really want to get in a position to help other workers be better workers. And I'm also going to step up my status with several nonprofits that I work with, and I'm going to start providing clinical services through the nonprofit. But right now, I haven't been able to provide any therapy to any of their clients. There's a group home that I visit to do some sports with the kids, and I know they really need group therapy, but I can't do that right now legally. So I just really want to get more involved as a professional and use this qualification to provide more effective service with my presence. Because I'm already present, but I can't do exactly what I think needs to be done because of the legalities.
That's clear. Now I understand. Thank you very much.
I'm gonna keep it brief because I think we've covered a lot of ground here. But my question would be, I don't know what the board is going to decide, but if the board would decide to grant you a probationary license, what are your thoughts on getting a license with some conditions?
I think that would be better than where I'm at now. And I have no issue with any conditions because I can follow rules and I just hope that one of those conditions is more time to get this license, because so much time has passed. I need to actually study for this exam and everything like that. But yeah, I don't have any issues with any conditions as long as I'm able to work.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions from board members? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I just want to make sure, because the statement of issue, when the board originally issued, it says, upon contact with respondent, the officer could smell the odor of marijuana emitting from his vehicle and breath. He was also observed to have watery, bloodshot eyes, but you just testified that you did not smoke marijuana. It was just your friend, possessed the marijuana. Am I understand you correctly?
You are correct. And to answer that, as I stated previously, we attempted to go to trial. And during that trial, they called in the officer that arrested me. And just listening to his testimony let me know how much they really fabricated everything that was going on. And the reason that he had to put that is because they needed to justify keeping me for a DUI, when initially the charge was possession. And once they realized that they had me there for a substantial amount of time, and through a DUI, if I'm going to sober up, they have to let me go. They decided that they couldn't let me go because of the marijuana. And so at that time, personally, I just feel like they had to fabricate that report to justify the arrest.
Yeah, thank you for the clarification, because it would affect our decision in terms of the probationary terms. Thank you.
Okay, any further questions from board members? Nope. Do you have further questions?
No.
Okay, anything else you want to say, Mr. Nash?
Yes. My last comment is just thank you. I really appreciate you guys. I've had a lot of sleepless nights trying to get this off my chest. And regardless of your decision, I feel like I was given a fair shot. I feel like I said what I needed to say and that I was as clear as possible. And I'm going to continue to do social work in some capacity. So I don't want you guys to feel like you're jeopardizing my career at all. I just want you to feel like you're being a potential asset to help me more qualified to reach more people. Other than that, I'm so glad I got this out of the way. This has been a long time coming. And so I just appreciate you guys for just opening the doors and just being honest and being fair and giving me all the feedback that you guys gave me, even if it felt like it was a challenge, Mr. Jonathan or Miss Christina. Not a challenge at all. I welcome challenges. I'm actually a person that does not shy away from conflict, which is why I was so persistent to try to get this hearing. So just thank you guys. Y'all have a great day. Make sure you have a good lunch. And I'm going to just continue my work today. I have a client that I need to see in Fresno. So thank you for moving me up on the schedule as well.
Okay, thank you. With that, the matter is submitted. The record is closed. Would you, Mr. Nash, get the document from the court reporter so that if you do wish a transcript, it tells you how to order it, all right? Okay, Mr. Laterhouse, is that right?
Okay. Am I passing your test? My name is Keith Lederhouse. A little nervous. I'm tend to be a soft speaker, so perhaps that would be better on account of nervousness.
Okay, on the record, and all right, sorry. Okay, on the record, in the matter of the petition for reinstatement filed by Keith Laterhouse. This matter bears Office of Administrative Hearings case number 2018-01-0694, agency case number 2002-001-800-1210. My name is Carl Engelman, Administrative Law Judge assigned to hear this matter. We're convened on February 21, 2018. A quorum of the board is present. Ms. Hara, would you state your appearance for the record, please?
Yes, Deputy Attorney General Summer Haro. I'm appearing on behalf of the Attorney General pursuant to Government Code Section 11522, representing the people of the state of California. I'm here to assist the panel in fact-finding. My role is not adversarial, but is intended to protect the public interest. I'm here to ensure that the panel has adequate information from which to make a decision.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Laterhouse, you're going to represent yourself today, sir?
That's correct.
Okay, you heard me ask the same question of the 4 previous petitioners, and that is, did you understand that had you wished and at your own expense you could have been represented by an attorney in these proceedings?
I understand.
Okay, and by now you, I think, know the process that the board is...
Quite aware. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Harlan, proceed.
Thank you. I would like to first mark for identification and offer into evidence as Exhibit 1 the petition packet with accompanying documents. Board members and petitioner have been provided with a copy of the same set of this exhibit. Exhibit 1 generally consists of the petition for reinstatement with attachments, the board's November 8th, 2013 decision adopting the stipulated settlement and disciplinary order, the board's petition decision effective June 30th, 2016, the notice of today's hearing, and petitioner's registration history certification. At this time, I offer this packet into evidence as Exhibit 1.
Okay, Mr. Laterhouse, any objection to my receiving your petition supporting documents and evidence?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, 1 in evidence. Please continue.
All right, I will now provide a brief summary of petitioner's license history with the board. On October 17th, 2012, the board issued Associate Clinical Social Worker Registration Number ASW 34492 to petitioner. On April 23rd, 2013, the board filed accusation number AS-2013-1473 against petitioner. The accusation alleged 3 causes of disciplinary action for out-of-state discipline, sexual misconduct, and unprofessional conduct. The accusation arose from petitioner's exchange of sexually explicit text messages with a minor female client while he was a certified social worker in the state of Utah. In July 2013, petitioner entered into a stipulated settlement. In doing so, he admitted the truth of each and every charge in accusation number AS-2013-1473. The stipulation provided for the revocation of his registration. On November 8, 2013, the board adopted the stipulation as its order. The decision became effective December 8, 2013. Petitioner is now petitioning to have his registration reinstated. And because the burden is on petitioner, I have no further statements, but reserve the right to question petitioner.
Okay, Mr. Laterhouse, before you make a statement to the board, would you stand and raise your right hand and be sworn, please? You solemnly swear or affirm that any testimony you shall give in this proceeding shall be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
I do, Your Honor.
Okay, and just for the record, you are Keith Michael Laterhouse. You are the petitioner for reinstatement of your license, correct?
That's correct.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Okay, I will admit I can just feel the emotions just kind of rushing, so I may need to take a little bit of time. I want to thank you for this opportunity. I had tried to reinstate a couple years ago, and I think since then I've been very reflective, and hopefully amongst the nerves and what have you, I can somehow convey that to the board. So I'll read this statement and kind of package it a little bit, but I'd like, in conversation, hopefully I can sort of loosen up a bit and communicate that further. So I'm here because I've made a horrible mistake in my personal and professional life in 2012 that has led me to the loss of my ASW license. I had exchanged sexually inappropriate text messages with a 16-year-old female client who I had met while working at a therapeutic boarding school for teens. Just acknowledging this outright is incredibly uncomfortable because my mistake is such a gross deviation from who I am internally. Of course, the board has little information about my character outside of this context and has the duty to protect the public. I've come to realize that, one, I should never take my license and ability to practice for granted, and two, I've accepted the possibility that my license may never be reinstated given the weight and seriousness of my mistakes. It's overwhelming for me to sit here in the presence of the board talking about the darkest, most secretive part of my life in open space. I don't think I can fully express the guilt and shame I felt for what I've done. I think my own therapy and work I've done following all this, though, has supported me in living a truer, more authentic life, and so I wouldn't change a thing, as painful as confronting this stuff has been. Since my previous attempt to reinstate, I've had time to sit and reflect on the feedback provided by the board as to why I was denied. To reiterate, the feedback was the following. 1, I did not take full responsibility for my actions. 2, I demonstrated insufficient insight into my motivations. And 3, I lacked insight into whether or not I caused this girl harm. The board further stated that I did not explore the character weaknesses that would cause me to be sexually attracted to this girl and to take advantage of a vulnerable minor. I have with time developed a fuller understanding of the nature of my relationship with this girl. During my previous reinstatement attempt, I agree that I failed to take responsibility and did not demonstrate sufficient insight. I believe my relationship with this girl was a consequence of a number of things, some of which include, 1, factors that led to my increasing vulnerability, such as chronic burnout, a recent and significant loss of a close friend, job dissatisfaction, loneliness, isolation, and depression. During my previous reinstatement attempt, I focused heavily on these issues in my life that were difficult in 2012. It's clear that simply providing an account of these incidents or issues does not convey to the board that I'm taking full responsibility. 2, my insecurities, specifically the need for validation and seeking it from wherever I could. I believe this need I sought to have met in my professional life by my clients. I simply wanted to be liked and did whatever I could to attain that. These usually took the form of subtle boundary violations that were nonetheless harmful to my clients. Over time, these acts contribute to provide a burnout and ruin the therapeutic relationship. Although the mistake that has brought me here is a far more serious boundary violation, I'm now able to sense and recognize the damaging effects of even the more subtle boundary issues that clinicians are naturally confronted in day-to-day practice. 3, a mutual attraction between myself and this girl. In this isolated incident, I allowed myself to act on this attraction. Prior to the exchange of our sexual texts, this girl and myself initially tended to each other's emotional needs and wounds. I had projected onto this girl my own need for acceptance, validation, and to be seen, which I had chosen not to confront and work through in an appropriate venue or relationship. This relationship seemed to carry a life of its own, and I had lost control. I was in denial about the fact that I was causing this girl harm, which only enabled me to continue the relationship until I was caught. Getting caught was the best thing that could have happened because it disrupted the momentum that had developed, and it forced me to take a look at myself and my reality. I don't claim that this fully explains all that accounted for my mistakes I've made with this girl. I'm a firm believer in my own therapy and the continuing process of living an examined life. It was in 2012 that I became disengaged in my own therapy and further isolated myself from the healthy supports that were accessible to me. Although this is the only boundary violation I've crossed that is sexual in nature, I continue to encounter situations in my current work with my adult clients that prompt me to reflect on this mistake and make better choices when responding to pressures to cross even subtle boundaries. During my previous reinstatement attempt, I remember the board asked if I had caused this girl harm. My response fail to demonstrate any responsibility. Any boundaries that are crossed in a therapeutic relationship or in a relationship where a power dynamic is present always causes harm, even if it doesn't feel that way. My mistakes with this girl only contributed to issues she was likely already dealing with. Sadly, my behavior truly contradicted the necessary safety that needs to exist in a healthy and healing professional relationship. I remember well the response I provided the board in 2016, which was that perhaps I had not caused harm and that rather the board should be asking the girl. I imagine I was, at that time, still very much in denial about the impact I had had on this girl. I think I was trying to internally reconcile the fact that although I'm a good person, I was still capable and responsible for doing something that caused a vulnerable minor deep harm. I'd also like to respond to the board's feedback that I did not explore enough my character weaknesses. This particular piece is very tricky and uncomfortable for me to parse out. There's a push, I feel somehow, to prove to the board that I am not chronically sexually attracted to minors or even children for that matter. I remember a board member in 2016 asked that I state in truth that I was not sexually attracted to children. I naturally responded that I'm not, as this is the truth. I understand completely why the board needs to ask and assess for this, as it's crucial to ensure public safety if I am to resume clinical practice. It's my belief that there's no way I can fully prove this, aside from the fact that this is an isolated incident and that I've made no prior or subsequent mistakes similar in nature. I do agree, however, that my attraction and mistakes had more to do with my character weaknesses at that time. I think these weaknesses could be better specified by insecurity and a lack in a cohesive or stable identity. To elaborate on the identity piece, my identity in 2012 was largely externalized to the extent that in my insecurity, I wanted to be seen as a good therapist to the clients I was working with. I think this preoccupation and need for validation from my clients caused me to be less present and less effective in my work. Sadly, the process was becoming more about my needs rather than those of my clients. This lack of groundedness, in turn, made me more prone to errors of judgment. The inability to practice clinically and having struggled for some time as a result of my mistakes has been an enormous opportunity for personal growth. I was no longer a therapist and so was forced to dig deeper and cultivate an identity, more stable and independent of external stuff and things outside my control. In our culture, especially today, it's easy to get lost in the day-to-day distractions that keep us fully from sitting with ourselves. Over time, it becomes easier and natural to derive self-worth from things unstable or external, social media, image, a profession, money, to name some. It seems easier now than ever for us to give ourselves away to pleasures, drugs, sex, money, power that offer temporary respite, but by no means make us better off spiritually, and in fact hurts ourselves and others in the end. As is often the case, hardship can breed self-discovery, and this has been the case for me, as I've chosen to do the work to develop a more stable self-concept and to validate myself internally for the qualities that better define me. I never considered this process done, as it is a process and is more of a commitment to something throughout my life. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff I've missed there, but I'm happy to naturally sort of talk about it more. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hart, your questions?
Yes, thank you. Mr. Leaderhouse, do you currently attend any therapy sessions?
I do. And I have consistently with different therapists, on and off. I've had the good fortune lately of being able to go weekly, and the presenting problem, so to speak, is not so much this, but I'm able to like draw from this experience and use it to like deal with current stuff. So yeah, my answer is yes.
How long have you been able to attend weekly?
My current therapist and I, it's actually been fairly recent. Weekly since about October.
Okay, and why the changes in therapists?
Well, immediately after all this had happened, I started seeing a therapist who I had seen back in college, and this was in Santa Barbara, so it was just more of a location, and also there was a cost struggle associated with seeing him. But then I've since moved up to the Bay Area. I would, if I had the money to use for my own therapy, I would be in therapy consistently throughout since 2013. But there have been periods where I've been able to like figure it out and afford it financially. But am I answering your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
You're currently employed?
Yes.
Does your current employer know about your disciplinary history with your license?
So that's the answer is no. And I've informed every single employer since about 2 employers ago, and that's because my current job does not require registration with the board. I'm not doing any clinical work, of course. The several jobs that I did divulge it, I was overqualified educationally, and so it was almost kind of worth the risk, like to divulge it and then also to be overqualified and work these like low-paying jobs because I was overqualified otherwise. And then I was able to sort of develop a trust and rapport with these employers, which then they've been able to write, not during this reinstatement, but the prior one, they wrote a number of recommendations. And I think they were pretty, upon knowing me, were pretty like in shock about the discrepancy between the character that I seem to have with them and this mistake, you know. So more recently, I've hard question to answer. I think in part due to the fact that I've allowed this thing to carry such a weight with me that I didn't want it to be the first thing that I told my employers if I didn't have to, because I didn't want that to then mask the does that make sense? Like I didn't want it to affect. That sounds bad just talking out loud, but I didn't want to not give myself an opportunity that I was otherwise qualified for, you know. And I think for a number of years I was really punishing myself and not striving to opportunities because of this. And so I think it was coming from that space that I chose not to divulge it. If I was in a position where I had to, I wouldn't have a problem doing that.
Thank you. Can you tell the board what assurances they have that this one-time incident won't be repeated in the future? And what support system do you have to make sure it's not going to happen?
I think it's just a weighty thing because there's so much to like talk about with it. And I'll need a pause because it's just so heavy. And I think the best way I can illustrate it is the picture of my life in 2012 is very different from my life right now. And at that time, I was struggling so deeply and in a vulnerable state that I was becoming more reclusive and not tapping into my supports. I think now I'm in sort of a position where I kind of overprocess. I have clients. Like I said, I don't work in a clinical capacity, but I do intensive case management. And I experience a lot of countertransference, and specifically one client I can think of, like I really feel that strongly with. And so I now have this impulse to always overstaff with my supervisor, or even in my own therapy. We have case conferences and such that I can be just just getting that energy out and allowing that to exist instead of inside of myself, I think has been really helpful. And I think I don't know if you're speaking to the sexual stuff with the minor, like that to me is like that. I just know that that's not going to happen, right? And I think the more important thing for me is to address those character weaknesses that that in which I was in a position where I was clearly willing to deviate from myself. So I'm like trying to answer a question, but it's so weighty and heavy that I only feel like I can do it conversationally, you know?
Okay.
But
Maybe answer this. What kind of support system do you have in place? Since your life, you've mentioned your life has changed so much.
Yeah.
What support system do you have now
yeah,
that you didn't have?
I think what I'm lucky to have now are people in my life, and I'm the type that has like fewer close friends than like lots of superficial friends, and all my close relationships I've been able to like divulge this thing, and it's been in romantic relationships too. I've been in situations where this thing just weighs heavily on me, and I've had to sort of allow that. You know, the experience of being seen by somebody in light of this is like, I think, one of the most healing things that I ever could have experienced. And I have relationships, close friends. I have a lot of siblings, family, like people who all know about this stuff, which initially is very uncomfortable, but has allowed me to sort of, now that this horrible thing that has happened that I've caused, I've been able to kind of leverage it and have better connections with my supports, friends, families, some professional people that I've divulged this to. So, yeah.
Do you have any criminal convictions that the board's not aware of?
No.
And do you have any current criminal or civil charges pending against you?
I do not.
Okay, those are all the questions I've got.
Okay, thank you. I think we're back to this.
Hi, thanks for coming today. I do have one question. When I ask it, I want you to understand that our role is public protection.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you describe yourself as being almost tortured by thinking about what happened with this young girl. Yes, okay.
Sure.
So my question is, do you consider yourself to have a problem with compulsive sexual behavior?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I have a quick question. On your the application on 10/14/17, so just a few months ago, at the bottom, it's they're asking yes and no questions, and so you clearly understand what has happened, correct? I mean, we've already gone through this process before, but yet when it said, "Have you applied for license in another state?" you said no.
Oh, well, that sounds like a misunderstanding or a mistake on my part. So, I mean, the best way I can illustrate it is just kind of tell you what happened.
Well, it
Maybe.
says on here, if you said yes, explain. And then you explained why you said yes, but you didn't say yes, you said no.
Because my situation's, I think it's still no. Can I just explain it, and perhaps that will, because I think it's a no, but it's like a no and, but maybe I just checked the wrong box. So all these mistakes I made in Utah, and because of all the stuff that happened, I left my job, I moved, I was in such a state of shock that I didn't even think to notify the board. And so I moved back to California to be with family. And I think I said this in my last reinstatement, very naively, I just went ahead and applied for an ASW license here. Naively, and I didn't know what was going to happen. I was eventually contacted by an investigator from the Department of Occupational Professional. It's the body in Utah. So once that happened, so I never practiced with the ASW license in California. I was just registered, and literally the week that it my my attorney had started, and I had started communicating with the DAPA board, and the same mistakes I made in Utah, and this suspension of that license have been carried over to the ASW license. Does that help at all clarify anything? Maybe I should have checked yes, but I think maybe I thought it was subsequent to this license.
If one has to surrender a license, and one would have had to have applied for a license.
Correct. Nothing was surrendered yet. The sort of like Utah thing happened first, and then the like I didn't surrender my license. My license in Utah was not surrendered when my ASW license was active. Does that make sense?
All I know is
Yeah.
what I'm looking at, and,
So
and how you said it. You said that you were subject to disciplinary action, and you had to surrender your license in effective February 2013, which would mean you would have to have checked yes. Utah is not California.
And that's a mistake on my end. I think I'm just very confused about that piece. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, really, it's only my own ignorance. I'm not trying to hide anything. It's that when I moved to Utah, after all that happened in 2012, nothing formal was happening in Utah. Naively applied to reinstate the ASW license, and so both licenses were sort of dealt with in kind of all in the same time. So once I resolved the stuff with the board, then my attention had to be turned to the ASW, and it was all for the same stuff.
Can I add? This is an administrative question for Kim. If in fact this went in as it went in, I mean, and claims that he checked the wrong box, is this something that just does a red flag and you contact them to ask them if they filled the boxes incorrectly, or do you just move forward?
We just move forward.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know what I indicated on my previous reinstatement, but it may have been, I don't know if it was the same or different, but if I did the same thing, which I thought I would have, no one brought it to my attention at that time.
Yeah, I don't think I have the previous one. Previous application. Okay, I just needed to know that. Okay. Thank you.
Next board member, any questions?
Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for coming back, and I want to acknowledge the work that you've done. I see a lot more insight from when you were here before. So you had mentioned that now when you experience countertransference with your caseload, you go to staff or your supervisor or your therapist. And I guess I'm curious, is there something in common with this particular girl and the type of countertransference you're experiencing with clients now? Is there something, like some people have dad issues, so everybody that looks like dad. So I'm just wondering if there's a theme, a thread through that.
Yeah, and I think there was something about that relationship where I felt seen somehow, and I wasn't allowing myself to be seen in other healthy, more appropriate relationships. I mean, I'm actually quadruplet, so I have other siblings, and I think sort of identity was always maybe a thing. So
Your current countertransference, then.
Current?
Yeah, you said when you experience countertransference, you speak to staff, supervisors, and your therapist.
Yeah, I always. I'm wanting to answer your first question though, which was, what's the thread there?
Or is there a thread? Maybe there's.
Yeah, maybe I'll just start talking and hopefully that kind of answers your question. I think, in my insecurity, I've always been sort of a rescuer of sorts, and I think that is symptomatic of not having a firm and established identity, and I think that connects perhaps to a lot of things as a kid and always having to compare. So I think there were elements in my relationship with this girl where I was feeling seen and clearly not doing it in appropriate venues or relationships. And there was this sort of dynamic of projection and rescuing and of one another, and it just became this all-consuming thing. Yeah, so it sort of paints a fuller picture of kind of what was going on than just, I don't want to minimize this or that, but the sexual texts were a component of something that was bigger and had really been all-consuming at that time. So does that help illustrate a little bit? I think now...
It illustrates that piece from the past. So yeah, now countertransference, you say you experience it.
Yeah.
Is it the same issue of needing to be seen or feeling like you're being seen and rescued and like you need to go to your supervisor, or is it some other topic?
Yeah,
entirely?
it's that, and like I have a client right now who the client asks of me things that aren't my role, and I find myself like internally like, okay, like I'm gonna draw from this past experience, and how can I better use this to like kind of be strong within myself and to set boundaries. And where was I going with that? Was that so then I'm able to sort of navigate that internally better and staff it if I need to. And make efforts to really try to empower the client and sort of create a little bit of a barrier so that I don't get sucked into something that I'm all too familiar with in another type of relationship, you know? So it's not even just about the sex stuff for me, it's about that dynamic and being very vigilant and sensitive to even the smaller things, that if I start to like bridge that or get through that, then other things may follow. Again, not even just sexually, but just like boundaries in general. And when I refer to this thing, I refer to it as being mistakes, because I think I must have made several mistakes prior to the actual change of text that led up to it. And so it's being responsible for all the stuff that had likely happened, that had gained momentum to the point where I truly felt at that time I had lost control.
So now you're at a phase, like back then you started crossing boundaries and you didn't realize it. Now you feel the boundary pull and you catch yourself.
Yes to the second part. The first part, I want to say I was real at first. Like I think there's a sense that I had that I was doing wrong, but I was in such a state of pain that I had this ability to compartmentalize myself a bit. And I was able to really just act on a series of impulses and disregard myself, essentially. And my commitment to myself is to never do that again, to never lose myself. And then by going more internal with myself, I can be more of a stable support for my clients without letting myself sort of, my identity be so diffuse, you know.
That helps. Thank you. I think you've answered.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I want to thank you for coming and also taking the board's the instruction or the statement at your report last time very seriously. And I know it's really, really hard work, and I'm so glad that you're doing it. So I have just a few questions. So the packet that you submit, it's very thin.
Yes.
And
yes.
there is absolutely no other evidence apart from your own statement.
Right.
Why didn't you solicit your friends and your peers, and since you have some close friends now, to write character letters to reflect that the change you have had today?
My I thought a lot about this. My insecurity has been the fact that, and perhaps I took it too far this time, which then if I get denied, I can grab all these things and do it. Like I have people in my life my therapist I can enlist and friends and such. I think my thought process here was that I was sort of hiding behind all of these things last time in my reinstatement. I was like, here's my life, it was bad, here's all the statements to support it, but I wasn't communicating truly that I was taking responsibility or demonstrating insight. So I think that's sort of an extension from me not wanting to hide behind anything, essentially. It's not as though that I can't get those things, you know?
So by not soliciting your, some other character references and stuff, is it a way, continue, a way for you to continue to hide? Because, it's very apparent, it's, all your words, and we have no other evidence, to really show who you are.
Yeah, I mean, as you're asking me this question now, I'm a little regretful that I didn't enlist as much, like I could have. But honestly, I'll keep on trying. I mean, I see a therapist. I have close friends. I talk about this stuff to my friends, family. If that's what keeps me from getting reinstated, at least, that's unfortunate. But I'm happy to get those things, and I would. And yeah, is that?
I'm just checking the reason. Because the burden of proof is on you. So
right.
The evidence that you show us that you have rehabilitated, that is important.
Sure.
So the second question I have is that you said that you're seeing a therapist on and off.
I'm seeing a therapist currently weekly. I'm also just and this is actually not specifically related to this. Also joining group therapy because I've always been interested in that process. I've met with a psychologist who runs these groups, and I'm sort of on in limbo because one person needs to leave for me to be a participant. And what I'm interested in group therapy is okay, so how can I use this as a microcosm to then extrapolate to my work with clients and my themes and patterns in romantic relationships and parsing all that stuff out. I have no aversion to involving myself in this stuff. So that's something that's kind of around the turn here. I haven't asked any of these practitioners to if they'd be willing to write letters, but I think perhaps they would. And yeah.
So what kind of issues that you've been working on? Just briefly tell us, the area in your psychotherapy that that you're focusing on.
Yeah, I mean, my presenting problem, so to speak, had to do more with a relationship, a very close relationship that ended, and a lot of stuff that happened in it. And so I think
Maybe let me reframe the question. Maybe I'll ask a more direct question.
Sure.
Are you currently addressing, all the shame and guilt and being a rescuer and, your ability to compartmentalize stuff, because those things are also a very important thing, when you being a therapist, that, your ability to fix those things yourself. So are you addressing those issues?
I am. Yeah, I mean, hopefully I've conveyed, I mean, there's just a lot of different pieces that I'm sort of willingly making myself a little uncomfortable to then look at this stuff. And yeah, I'm doing that in therapy. I saw my therapist yesterday, and it's been nice. The thing, I think in some ways this has actually saved my life, and it saved my professional life because it could have been a lot worse. We could have had physical contact, we could have exchanged pictures, things like that, and it didn't happen. I think I have sort of a temperament, I'm naturally prone to a depressive state. I'm a very sensitive person. I feel very deeply, and so it's like working with my therapist to figure out how to exist, in that space and to use it in a positive way, and to not let it be something that brings me down, not let it be something that creates poor boundaries with people. so yeah, I'm addressing that, and my presenting stuff. I'm also then drawing from all this stuff and trying to sort of continue to build my sense of self and identity. And I hope that answers your question.
No, you did. You did.
Okay.
You actually answered my third question too. So.
Oh, good. All right. 2 birds.
Thank you.
Welcome.
No, my question's been asked. Thank you.
Okay.
Good afternoon. So let me start by saying that I am very concerned about some things that I have not heard from you related to what has happened. Related to what has happened here, and I have a series of questions because I don't get the sense that you've answered them to today. So my first question is, when you were treating this young lady, when you began to recognize that what was going on between you and her was inappropriate, what kept you from bringing that up with your supervisor?
So to add clarification, she wasn't my client. She wasn't on my caseload.
It was not.
She was not.
Okay. This was just a minor.
This was a minor who was a client in a therapeutic boarding school that I happened to just have like occasional contact with, but she wasn't on my caseload. I only say client to like take responsibility because I want to honor it in that way, you know, and that's the language that the board uses. So like I want to say that, but like we didn't have sessions or anything like that.
So thank you for clearing that for me because that was a misunderstanding that I had, and I do take responsibility for that. So I guess my follow-up question.
No, that wasn't conveyed. I think this time around. Last time I think it was when I tried to reinstate before. You weren't here.
I wasn't there. So
Okay, gentlemen, one at a time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, wait till the question's asked, then respond.
Well, thank you for clarifying that because that was a misunderstanding on my part. So then my question would be, as a therapist working toward licensure, what kept you when you began to recognize that this was going on? What kept you from seeking your own treatment or seeing a therapist to get support around that?
Your question is what kept me from seeing my therapist at that time?
What kept you from recognizing that what was going on between you and this minor was inappropriate and then saying, I'm going to get therapy to work on this? What kept you from doing that?
I did recognize it was inappropriate. I think in some ways I was in so much pain that I'm on a path of self-destruction that I then started to disengage from therapy because I was experiencing all that shame. I was disengaging from friends because, of course, if I'm going to talk to them about it, they would tell me, like, Keith, you got to deal with this. You have to do the right thing. They would tell me it was I think at that time I sadly chose not to engage in therapy or help when I know that I should have. I think in my gut I knew very well what was going on, and I was just in a state where I couldn't, or I was becoming less and less capable of doing it, and something had to disrupt that. I feel like I have more to say about it, but I just want to make sure, am I kind of answering your question a little bit?
You answered it a lot. Thank you. So my next question is, in the paperwork, it says that since this incident happened, that you have been in 13 therapy sessions since then. Is that an accurate reflection of the rehabilitation that you participated in?
No, that would have been prior to 2016 with, I think, with my therapist in Santa Barbara. Since then, I was living in San Jose for a bit, so I saw a therapist maybe every other week. He was not, so I don't know how long I saw him because I moved to Alameda from there. So I saw him for as long as I could, maybe 10, 15 sessions, I don't know. I then moved and am now finally seeing a therapist again since October. So, if I had the funds I would be in therapy. I would have been in therapy continuously, and actually I'm in a better situation financially where I'm able to use that, which is why I've been going to therapy. Both therapists I've seen more recently, I have not asked of them to write anything because I wanted it first to be like not about the board and about my own process, you know. I wanted it to be very internally driven and not external for like some board or something. So that's why you're not seeing the numbers that the work that I'm truly doing reflected. It's not being reflected in what you're seeing.
Are there other rehabilitative structures that you've participated in since then? And the reason why I ask that question is you make a lot of statements about your own experience, your own insight, your own understanding of things, and they seem to be disconnected from a therapeutic structure. So I'm trying to figure out, are there other things that you've done consistently to get at the root of what happened, what sort of things you can learn about yourself so that it doesn't happen again, and then put structures and safeguards in place so that whether or not you become a therapist, you can be a safe person as it relates to minor children.
Now, when you say structure, are you talking about like structuring my environment in such a way to like safeguard against potentially making that mistake again? Is that?
That's a great. So maybe the question was too long. My question is, considering the significance of what occurred between you and this young lady, I'm wondering what sort of rehabilitative activities have you engaged in so that you get greater understanding about why that happened?
I mean, I suppose the venues that I've chosen, individual group therapy, is sort of my form of doing that. But what I think you might be feeling out perhaps is like, have I enlisted in sort of like, this is uncomfortable for me because then I feel then I have to like ask other supports being like support related specifically to like perpetrators or sexual stuff, you know what I mean? Like so I guess what I'm curious to hear is what are some other structures? I mean, for some of our other speakers, there's like drug and alcohol stuff, and it's kind of more of a, I guess if I can speak freely for a second, maybe can we make it more of a conversation? Is that perhaps?
Actually, you've actually answered my question, so thank you. You did.
Okay. If I can just also say that, yeah, this has been really difficult because I think, and I don't want to minimize people who go before the board for drug and alcohol issues. With mine, it's like I have to carry this thought that's like I don't know if I could ever fully prove. Yeah, I could do the best that I can, but I don't know if I could fully prove because at least with substance use, you have these numbers, you have these sobriety dates, you have these things that you could then use. For me, I just I don't know, my plan is this, which is I'll continue my therapy, my own work, independent of whatever the board decides, and I'll keep on trying. And I'm happy to try what other venues out there that could potentially be a support. But for me, it's been individual and potentially group therapy and just the relationships that I have in my life that are healthy, that I can sort of heal and move on and learn and such.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions by board members? Any other questions? Okay. All right, then. With that, the matter is submitted. The record is closed. Mr. Laterhouse, I think you heard what I said to the other petitioners, and that is the board, having completed all of the petitions today, will meet in executive session sometime today, probably after a lunch recess. And you will be mailed a decision by the board, all right?
Thank you.
And please pick up a document from the court reporter that will allow you to order a transcript if you're so inclined. Thanks for attending.
Thank you.
How many hours?
How many days?
And 10 minutes.
Thank you.